What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH. Today's guest lives at one of my favorite intersections that I really love. It's strength, it's medicine, it's science, but more importantly, it's the bravery and the willingness to question what everybody else seems to just accept as truth. He's a physician, he's a competitive strength athlete, a coach, and the founder of Barbell Medicine. We just got the little peek behind the curtain as to how that started. And he spent years trying to separate what actual humans do to become healthier. What they do to separate the simplicity from the nuance and from the bro science and from the BS that is perceived as truth on the internet, but seemingly doesn't always get backed up by the science. And today we're going there. The difference between pain, protein, all these things about peptides, obesity, testosterone, the carnivore diet, a Mediterranean diet, supplements, longevity, mobility, wearables, and overall wellness culture. So whether you've been somehow made being healthy super complicated or something that can be very simple, I'm really excited to sit down with Dr. Jordan Feigenbaum today to unpack some of the secrets within health and wellness, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a great intro. All those things may or may not be true. We'll see at the end of the episode whether you like those things.
Before we jump in and kind of start slapping people on the forehead with a bunch of nuance and fun things, what's exciting you right now? Like within your career and what you're seeing within the world, what's kind of lighting your heart on fire right now?
Man, this is a great question. So one, I am very, very interested in sort of how the obesity space is changing. I'm probably the most interested in that right now from a few different aspects. One, we are becoming increasingly sophisticated at being able to define what obesity actually is. And so you look at, for example, many definitions of obesity. You could be as simple as, oh, it's just excess body fat, right? And then you're like, well, what does excess actually mean? Like, where's the limit and why is there a limit? And so then you go to like the Obesity Medicine Association's definition, and they're like, it's a chronic medical problem, relapsing, remitting, wherein excess body fat causes abnormal physical forces of body fat, cardiometabolic problems, so on and so forth. And you're like, still excess, it's doing that thing, right? So how do we define that? And how do we predict it before it happens? Because every measure that we have right now is after the fact. We can only identify obesity after it's happened, right? So if you were to define obesity as excess body fat, and you're like, oh, well, really what you're defining is somebody's appearance, what they look like, but you can be very lean and have all of the medical conditions from having too much body fat, or you can have a lot of body fat and none of them. So it can't just be the body fat. So anyway, that's interesting to me. We can unpack that, but super interesting from that perspective. But also now we have great ways to actually treat obesity. You know, a lot of people listening to your podcast are what I would consider health maxers, you know, and I don't say that in a derogatory sense, but, you know, they are paying attention to their nutrition, their sleep, their training, lifestyle overall, and so on and so forth. Yet we still have this epidemic of obesity, right? And it's like, well, before we didn't really have good options. Yeah, you can tell people to eat less, move more. You can count their macros, you know, eat less processed foods. All of these things are true. Whether they're helpful or not, you know, they kind of, you have to look at the outcomes. And unfortunately, lifestyle-based inputs, change in person's diet, change in their exercise, while it does improve their health, it doesn't really touch obesity for most folks. As a statistic, individuals with obesity on their average lifespan will try to lose weight eight different times, like full-on concerted efforts to try to lose weight. It mostly doesn't work, meaning that they don't achieve what we call clinically significant weight loss, which is losing at least 5% of their starting body weight and then keeping it off.
That's a really interesting statistic. The other thing that stands out to me is that we had Dr. Andy Galpin on the show, I don't know, a year or two ago, and I hated him for this statement, but I loved him for this statement also, which is the answer to most scientific questions, quote unquote, it depends.
Sure. I mean, well,
and that's tough, right? Because it's like on the fitness side of things, it's just like, oh, you're obese because you don't move enough, you don't sleep, you eat processed food, you probably drink the majority of your calories. Let's just remove some of those things and we'll fix the problem. Okay, maybe some of the time that works. But then you also have to say like, hey, it depends, because you can spiral up and you can also spiral down. And in spiraling down, thinking of it like levels to a video game, you might unlock some sort of autoimmune issue, hyperthyroidism, some sort of issue going on with the pituitary gland. And then obviously there's psychology.
Yeah.
There's depth. And I actually very much appreciate, just to give people a little context, like if they've not checked out your Instagram, it's badass. Can you share with people your Instagram?
Yeah. Jordan_Barbell Medicine.
Yeah. And what's dope is that like, you don't just put like one like sentence and you're like, this is the answer, guys. It's like, let's go through a carousel and better understand. This is my take, but here's why. Mm-hmm. And I very much appreciate that, because it gives context as to why you think the way you think. You're not just saying it blatantly. And then you provide, hey, here are my references. Here are the actual studies and the resources as to why I provided that hot take. And I just think that gives people tools. Here's the better question though, Jordan. Who's willing to actually lean into that?
That's a great question. Yeah. I mean, I think I get 3 different types of people that interface with me. One are the true fans that no matter what I did, they were going to be like, nice. Right. The other people,
I'm one of those guys.
Yeah. The other people are ops, and I say that in a joking way because I don't think we're actually opposed. We generally all want the same thing. We want people to maximize their health span, their lifespan, have a high quality of life. We all want that. Right. But they disagree with my take, and they're unwilling to suspend either their own disagreements and kind of look at my argument and see like, oh, where's the common ground? So those comments are generally aggressive and sometimes rude, but it's the internet. I got thick skin, so whatever.
Proud of you for that.
Not talking to them. The person in the middle is who I'm talking about. They generally don't have a fully formed opinion, mainly because they recognize, I don't know a lot about this stuff. I'm not an expert here. I haven't waded in to the research. And even if I did, that's not really my calling, so it's hard for me to do. Those people are the ones I'm talking to because they haven't yet decided. So that's really the kind of...
It's really cool that you established that niche. I mean, you've obviously done the homework to see who your demographic is, what your ideal avatar is. You've been doing this for a very long time. So, I mean, I very much admire that. The other thing that's really interesting to me, Jordan, is the messy middle's hard, man.
Totally, yeah.
Right? Because it's like, well, Joe Rogan said this, and then I've got like Brigham Bueller from Ways to Well saying this, then I got Paul Saladino saying this, and then this expert on Jay Shetty said this, and then I watched some sort of news outlet with, Dr. Oz or Bill Gates, and they gave this advice. I remember when my mom was alive, man, she was like, Bryce, I'm trying to do my best, but there's so much conflicting knowledge out there. From your experience, man, before we like really get granular, which I'm excited to do, where does somebody start, man? Especially like, let's just paint an avatar real quick. Like a baby boomer woman, she's maybe, mid-50s, either perimenopause or menopause. She's trying her best to kind of deconstruct, like in the 90s was low-fat everything, and then in the early 2000s was like gluten-free everything. And now it's like, oh my gosh, there's peptides, there's GLP-1s, there's this carnivore diet, there's vegan diet. Everything's injected with everything. The vegetables are sprayed with a peel and all these things. Where does somebody start when there's so much conflicting knowledge and their brain has too many tabs open, dude?
Yeah, that's a great question because, most of the questions that they have require expertise in multiple domains, right? And I think that's where we have a big problem. We have people with deep levels of expertise in one domain, but not in another, and then they're given a recommendation, which doesn't mean that the recommendation is, quote, wrong per se. It just maybe lacks a little additional context. And so again, taken in isolation can seem like it's conflicting, right? And so, yeah, what does a person do who's not only have limited sort of expertise in the area, but also limited time? If you had unlimited time, what you would try to do is take all the experts, right, across different domains.
Put them into a smoothie, blend it up, and then drink all the expert advice.
And then further, what is the commonality? Because I would say that in general, most experts or people with a lot of experience and expertise will agree on, let's say, 75 or 80% of a particular topic, right? On the edges is where it starts to kind of fall apart. Now, obviously, I'm oversimplifying, but so what does that person do? What would I have them do? I would generally go look for a guideline first. Is there a clinical practice guideline related to what you're talking about? So, for example, the dietary guidelines for Americans. People say, oh, the guidelines have caused obesity. And it's like, well, no one eats the guidelines. Have you looked at them? It's like, yeah, eat more fruits and vegetables, eat less processed foods, avoid foods with added sugar, all these sorts of things. It's like, that's reasonable advice, but nobody eats them. So it's like, okay, just the guidelines existing doesn't change behavior, but the recommendations themselves are fine. Or what about exercise? I heard I shouldn't do high intensity, or I should only lift weights, or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, let's go look at the
people are looking for a labeled hack.
Yeah.
And what I love about what you do is that when I think of like a bowling analogy, you do a great job of putting like the guardrails up of like, hey, in the beginning, the guardrails are here. Mm-hmm. The compliance is the science. Take your fish oil. Okay, if you did that the first week, week 2, I'll add something else. I'll make the guardrails a little bit further. Mm-hmm. And over the course of time, you start to increase that freedom and that flexibility for people where they have a little bit more nuance. Mm-hmm. But what I'm hearing also is a problem with the education system in the sense that, hey, Jordan, memorize these things for medical school, take the exam. I'm going to assign you a score. Based on that exam, you're going to get to the next level of the game.
Yep.
So then it becomes less about context and critical thinking and more about memorizing to play the game that they want you to play. And then as a byproduct, when you're given guidelines and you're in the real world now, you're like, okay, I see those guidelines, but there's no return on investment. And if you're looking to actually change behavior, you and I both know this 101. If you have incentive, you can reverse engineer to then create behavior.
Yep.
But if there's no incentive to follow the fucking guidelines, people are just like, screw it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, like, it's a free for all. And so what I'm seeing in the world from my observation is just everybody's throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. This episode is brought to you by ALLSMITH. If you've been listening for a while, you know this is bigger than just workouts. At ALLSMITH, fitness is the vessel. Life is the true mission. We help people upgrade not just their body, but their routines, their mindset, their energy, their confidence, their relationships, and their overall direction. Some people work with us in person through coaching, through accountability, through movement, through community, and through real human connection. Others choose to work with us online from anywhere in the world through customized programming, lifestyle design, habit building, check-ins, support, and a system built around your actual life. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is creating a life that feels aligned, resilient, energized, and truly sustainable. If you feel stuck, if you've been putting yourself absolutely last in all the things in your to-do list, if you want support, structure, accountability, and community that genuinely gives a damn, ALLSMITH might be your next step. Movement is the entry point. Your peak expression is the destination. Head over to allsmith.co or shoot me a message on Instagram at @TheRealBryceSmith or shoot a message to our team at ALLSMITHCO, and let's build something beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with guidelines are a few things. One, nobody reads them. And then 2, the people who do read them already knew the guidelines. They're the experts. And so you would want more people who are like looking for answers to kind of access them. And then further, there's some stuff in the guidelines that, okay, you could push back on, but you can only do so after you've amassed a lot of experience. And so to your example, you're like, yeah, you got to memorize the facts. You look, all tests in medical school are multiple choice, right? And so that sort of develops a different way of thinking about answering questions than what you would see in the wild.
You're not necessarily trying to find what's right. You're more obsessed with trying to figure out what's wrong.
This is a probability thing. When you're taking exams, you're like, okay, it's probably not that. I'm just like this answer, and it's already presented to you. When you see a patient, there is no multiple choice, right? So it's funny. You get out of medical school, and then now it's your intern year, and now you're in residency, and you're like, oh, it's a total shift in thinking. Yeah, it's a different part of the brain for sure. Yeah, but you know, how do you test for that throughout? Like, so it's hard. Super challenging. But yeah, people can be forgiven in my mind for having various belief systems that don't match, quote unquote, the best evidence that we have, because how would they know? Like, think about the expertise in any domain that you feel like you know a lot about. How would you have a person with no expertise identify a true expert? Right. And really an honest broker of information, somebody who's not necessarily advocating, not necessarily trying to sell you something, not trying to disparage somebody else, right? Taking a shot.
I love that question, dude. And that tells me just what a critical deep thinker you are. I'll say this. Personally, I can't speak for everybody listening. I establish an expert as an explorer, somebody that spends time in the space to not only get the the scientific knowledge, the book knowledge, the actual acquiring of information to do the research and be an explorer there. But then also to be a practical explorer. Hey, I'm going to go test these things in the real world, not just on myself as a guinea pig, but also on clients, on friends, on family. But here's the big kicker for me, and this is why I love to podcast. Right. I come in sometimes with like a strong stance, and then a guest or a friend or somebody is sitting on the other side is like, well, Bryce, what do you think about this, 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 and this? What I identify as a true expert, which is why I love this, is the ability to be malleable.
Yep.
I have this strong opinion, Jordan, which I did about BPC 157. I was like, bro, I've seen hundreds of people, thousands of people get benefits. I've talked to people navigating back injuries, elbows, hips. But then I was like, whoa, your take was so spot on around, dude, you could purchase this shit on the internet. You have no idea what is. I mean, for all we know, you could be vaccinating yourself or doing something that you have no idea. There's no regulation. It's like going to GNC and taking something that sort of seems legit, and then all of a sudden you're like on cocaine and you don't even know it.
Wouldn't it be the craziest psyop if like a bunch of these research chemical versions of BPC 157 were really like flu vaccines? And then people were like,
it totally could be though.
I'm just kidding.
But here's the thing, like you could be kidding, but it also could be.
Could be true, we don't know.
For all that we know, which has to be something that floats to the surface, which I felt like you brought a really valid point around, which is like, hey, a lot of you guys are either getting a placebo benefit or you're getting some sort of just bullshit. Some of you guys might be getting something. A lot of, experts and people you trust say that like this shit works. So all of a sudden you believe them. So maybe there's a psychosomatic component. But going back, you referenced something on your Instagram, which I thought was really interesting around knee surgeries. Mm-hmm. How some people actually got the surgery for a torn meniscus. And then some people, they did the whole process, put them under anesthesia, like went in there with all the tools and kind of fabricated it. And they didn't have the surgery. And there wasn't really a big difference between those that got the surgery and those that got the placebo version.
Yeah.
And if I take that analogy and put that into the peptide space, I'm like, dang, Jordan, you got me, man. That's a really valid point.
Well, it could be. I mean, sham surgeries, so it's interesting. Sham surgeries arguably have a higher bar to pass as far as an institutional review board, so the IRB, saying, hey, you can do this trial. So he has to make sure it's ethical and everything else. And so these people volunteered for the study, so they know it's a potential outcome that they could get the sham surgery. And to your point, yeah, this has been done about a half a dozen times for meniscus injury, particularly those that are either degenerative or in some cases traumatic, but they generally aren't bucket handle tears. They aren't the symptoms where they have symptoms of locking, for example. So there's some like criteria ahead of time. Like we're only testing this relatively narrow question, right? So these are generally older individuals who say, I got a meniscus injury and now I got knee pain, and as a 40-year-old, for example. And so anyway, they do these sham surgeries, like you said. Part of them, half of the group will get the real surgery. The other half, they go to the OR. They get put under general anesthesia. They make the incisions, the cuts in the skin. Sometimes they'll wash the joint out so that the person thinks, oh, there's some swelling, for example, so they don't, the patient doesn't know. Other times they won't do that. And yeah, when you look at 2-year outcomes, they're about the same, right? And it's like, okay, and the reason I put that in the post is like, this is a pretty dramatic example of where it's not that it's all in your head, but like your expectation of benefit of a particular intervention can drive the outcome more than the intervention itself. In this case, they didn't actually have the intervention. Mm-hmm. And so the reason for including that was like, look, I'm not telling you that you took BPC 157 and then later, your improvement was, it didn't happen. I'm not telling you your experience is wrong. It probably is true, but why it's true is more interesting to me. And so if you read the sham surgery stuff, you're like, that is interesting. That makes me challenge kind of how I'm understanding why the causality of BPC, take it, joint pain, improve. If it challenges you a little bit, great. That's the whole point. It's not trying to challenge a person like your experience was wrong or you were dumb or, you even taking these things is a silly idea. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is like, we don't know that it works because we don't have that same type of evidence here, right?
You've just unlocked so much curiosity in my mind, dude.
All right, let's do it.
In the sense of like, I always said that like the greatest gift my father ever gave me was that he believed in me. And so as a byproduct, I believed in me. I was hitting the game-winning shot in the driveway, putting in the extra work, similar to you, lower middle class, tried to make it work. There was some months where we didn't do well, and then some months where I was like, oh, like it seems like we're okay. But like that level of belief unlocked this just like intrinsic thought process of like, oh, I can do anything. But then I self-reflect on certain friends whose like parents were single parent households. The moms work in the double shift at Wendy's. They're left isolated of like, man, like, I don't know what I'm going to eat tonight. Like, I got to make sure the door's locked because the drug dealer is going to knock on the door again. And, you know, growing up in LA, there's a lot of just like nuance like that. And I'm genuinely curious, like how much the psychosomatic component like plays a role in healing, how much woo-woo things like manifestation play a role, how much there's spiritual component, how much there's prayer, relationship to God. Things that I'm hearing, you know, from various medical practitioners is like, if you go in with a pessimistic perspective, probably have a pessimistic, you know, experience. And I've talked about it before, and some people have told me I'm right. Some people have told me I'm wrong. Like every person I meet, I call it API, assume positive intent. I give them honestly a 12 out of 10. And that's like, all right, you do this thing or you show a character flaw, you skip some reps, you do something that's just like not in alignment with my value system, you get minus a point. But I don't go in like 0 to 0, prove yourself to me, dog. That's just not my style. But they both could be right.
Yeah.
And I'm curious your thoughts, like how much the little bit between our ears plays a role in this healing and science journey.
No, this is a great, I mean,
like, how do you believe you're going to pick up 700 plus pounds?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So I think this all comes back to, at its core, perhaps a change in modeling. So originally medicine, for example, is biomedical, very like anatomical structure, function, any disruption there, you're going to have some sort of symptom, some sort of disease, some sort of pain, whatever, right? Which unfortunately does not really describe the experience that people have. And so this has been broadened. It happened in the 80s to the biopsychosocial model, which means that there are biological, psychological, and social and environmental sort of inputs into the experience, and not only like of the condition, in this case, pain, right, for example. And so you can give or look at different trajectories with low back pain, for example, of people who have a high amount of, we'll call it self-efficacy. The person believes, hey, I am in charge of my own destiny, my own trajectory. I play an active role in my healthcare. I've got the resources, the tools, the strategies needed to succeed.
Ownership and responsibility.
Their disability goes down. Their symptom duration lasts for a shorter period of time. They generally do better compared to the person. It's like learned helplessness is kind of an aggressive term, and I don't want to like demean somebody like that.
Fix me.
Yeah, but they're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't have resources. I don't have access. I don't believe that I can do, sort of take an active role in my healing. And these people have longer rates of disability, worse pain, symptoms, and so on and so forth. And so to me, it's all just more complicated, right? You have to kind of look at every type of relationship in medicine and health through this biopsychosocial model lens. And so, yeah, your point, the brain and what's going on has a big effect with respect to weight loss. A big predictor of how well people will do with any intervention is, have they failed a bunch of times before? And think about the psychological warfare that goes on there. If the average person with obesity tries to lose weight 8 times in their life, right? And now you're asking them to do it a 9th time. They've learned, they have demonstrable proof that they're likely to.
This episode of ALLSMITH is brought to you by our friends over at Kalo and their new smart ring. I've been wearing the Kalo smart ring the past few months, and I love how simple it is. It seamlessly fits within my lifestyle and is not invasive into any elements of my life. It tracks my sleep, my movement, my heart rate, my HRV, my stress, my body temperature, and it gives you real awareness around your lifestyle and how it's impacting your recovery and performance. What makes it perfect for me is simply the versatility. I can wear it while coaching, while training, while working, while sleeping, or just living life, and it quietly collects the data in the background. And the best part is it's under $200 and there's 0 subscription. No monthly fees, no gimmicks, just clean, affordable health tech. Head over to kalo.com/allsmith and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to get your discount. You can also find it at select Walmart stores and at walmart.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Fail.
This doesn't work. They've created proof of concept.
100%. Yeah. That basically validating their own experience is feedback, self-sabotaging feedback loop. And so, yeah, to your point, whether you want to call it spirituality, whether you want to call it sort of self-belief, whether you want to call it self-efficacy, that's my preferred term. But like, you have to believe that you can play some sort of active role, maybe not in the sort of biological component of the disease, or the condition or whatever, but like you can affect the trajectory based on your kind of outlook. And that's the simplest, that's the wooiest way I can say it.
You're freaking smart, dude. I like hearing you give us a little bit of a shovel digging lens into how that brain operates. It's very impressive. Because the other thing that I'm hearing from you, Jordan, is that language is almost like hieroglyphics. Like what I say and what you hear could be different. And I heard you use the phrasing preferred term. What's so interesting is like in the 90s, bro, like you could cuss at people. Like I remember in basketball practice getting like grabbed and just like cussed out. And like I almost got to the point where I thought it was funny because I was like, these are like spit and words coming from an animal's mouth. It's almost like going to the zoo and seeing like an elephant. You're like, and I'm just like, okay, I don't really know what that means.
Yeah.
But like modern day, language really matters.
Words matter.
They do. And they can be really either positive, they could be really negative, or they could just kind of be mundane.
In medicine, we see this happen all the time. So for example, degenerative disc disease, I think it should be rebranded as sort of age appropriate changes to the spine. Yeah. Because you see degenerative.
It comes with a negative connotation. And all of a sudden you see the optimism go like, oh, it's a posture of defeat.
Yeah, you're losing self-efficacy right there because the person's like, well, it's degenerative. What am I supposed to do about this?
Yeah.
So yeah, words matter, and everyone's heard of the placebo effect, right? Well, not a lot of people have heard of the nocebo effect, where you can instill negative sort of beliefs, negatively prime somebody to and they ultimately have a worse experience because of the words that you use or the way you framed something. And so yeah, clinical communication and just generally speaking, words matter. And people will tell me like, dude, you talk like AI sometimes. And I'm like, I could only hope that AI talks like this sometimes. So for example, I don't say a diabetic, I say an individual with diabetes. I don't say an obese person, I say an individual with obesity.
Dude, this is fucking phenomenal. I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday.
It's not their whole life.
Yes. It's not how you identify.
Yeah.
You're somebody that may experience anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, why do I have anxiety? Maybe I had too much caffeine. Maybe I didn't sleep that well. Maybe I went through a breakup. Maybe I'm making poor choices and too much sugar and not enough nutrient-dense, real whole foods. Okay, maybe I'm experiencing depression. Why? Am I watching porn all the time? Am I not sleeping enough? What's the tribe? What's the people that I'm around? I look at like the 7 F's: faith, family, fitness, finances, fun, fashion, and friendship.
I like that.
And it's like, to me, I'm like, okay, like the center of that's kind of like wellness and, health, because without that, like you can't really focus on anything else. And then these are kind of like the other spokes in the wheel that allow you to kind of move through life. Mm-hmm. What's so interesting to me is that, and this is why I love what you're doing in Barbell Medicine, is that you're looking at all of those things. You're getting a patient intake of like, hey, let me get to know you. Mm-hmm. Let me understand your habits. Let me understand your inner child, right? Because the other thing that's important around the mindset of what you just described, there's an abundance mindset. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, all things are possible. Every day I wake up and like, I have a blank page and I can take this pen and I can be the hero of my story and I can write this magic. And there's a scarcity mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. My left low back hurts. I can't afford a good bed. Oh, I don't have any coffee today. I can't afford a good breakfast. Like, I'm a victim to everything. I haven't made any choices. My parents sucked. Fuck it. I'm just going to smoke a cigarette right now.
Yeah. Yeah. We sometimes call this like patient activation. And so it's like, if you are an activated individual, you have a belief that you can do a lot of things, right? You have access, you feel empowered, right? And then if you have a low level of activation, the exact opposite. And so what you're describing really is like a person believes that if given the right set of circumstances or the right sort of tools, that they can be successful.
I love that.
Yeah. And it just, you see it play out over and over again. And unfortunately, while I appreciate your comments, one problem we have here is like, this is not a 5-minute visit.
No.
This is not.
And so that's another part of the conversation. Before I get there though, man, I'm mad at myself for what I just said because like, I feel like I'm being more judgmental than curious.
Okay.
right? Like, I think Ted Lasso hits the nail on the head. Theo Vaughn talks about it quite a bit. Like, we're so hard on ourselves. And it's easy for me to judge, right? Like, I'm very thankful that, like, my parents instilled an abundance mindset. And then, like, being in high-level sports, like, my teammates did that too. Not everybody gets that opportunity. So I don't want it to come off as, like, I'm being this privileged, judgmental asshole. But I am, like, if you remain malleable, you can change from victim to abundance or scarcity to abundance. And it's like, I think that starts with taking care of yourself, listening, really trying to like be around like, okay, that person seems to have a pretty cool life, or I like their energy. I'm attracted to that. What do they do that maybe I'm not doing? Let me pick one thing. Okay, they clean up their mess. They put their grocery cart away. They eat protein first. They're not drinking soda. They're mostly drinking water. Oh, they make sure they get to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. They do the next right thing. If they see trash on the floor, they throw it away. They treat people with kindness and love. And you're right, like 5 minutes is tough because modern medicine is like, okay, you have this much in student debt. The hospital needs to make money. We need to see this many patients in a day. We need to bill the insurance. We can't do too many MRIs because they're costly. My brother's a medical director now, so I get to hear some of the peek behind the curtain as like the finances, some of that stuff. There's also tons of Netflix things that you can watch. The Resident is a good one that you've probably seen.
Yeah.
But it's just like, dude, now there's all these different financial nuances that live rent-free between our ears, and that depreciates from human care. It's not about health care, because it's really not. It's sick care, at least right now. Not forever. I think it's malleable. And in some places, it is health care. But then it's also just like, why can't it just be human care? How are you as a human, man? But that takes a lot more than 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the whole system realistically needs to change in order to optimize people's health trajectory by and large. And that's not only the physicians, right? Generally, I think physicians mean well, are well educated, want to do their best, but they're trapped inside a system where they're either perversely incentivized or otherwise kind of constrained to do things that ultimately probably aren't the reasons they got into medicine, right? So no hate comms against physicians. I feel your pain.
I agree with everything that you just said, for sure.
Further, you have patients too. They have expectations from going to doctors their whole life, and maybe they just want the medication versus like, okay, you got some elevated blood pressure. It'd be really nice if we could do these lifestyle changes, and maybe we can avoid the medication, not because there's anything wrong with taking a medication, but because ultimately this would have add-on benefits on top of that.
Real quickly, a quick little question there, because I do see both sides, and you're doing a good job of being on both sides, which is not easy. It's hard.
Yeah, some people know that's annoying to people. They're like, say one thing.
I don't think it is, though. Like, I don't want you to be one thing. I want you to be you. Okay. And what I very much think is interesting is, like, patient comes in, expectations are, I pay $600 a month for my health insurance. If I'm making the payment, I want the service. I need to get the result. The doctor then meets with them. Maybe they saw a patient intake form, a questionnaire. Maybe they know them from previous visits, and there's some sort of relationship there. The doctor is now thinking, okay, I got into medicine because I truly care. In the back of their brain, they have $700,000 in medical debt. They're trying to, make sure they see this many patients in a day. They just saw this patient. They're feeling like they need to write those notes for that so they don't forget if they didn't use AI, audio capture.
Yep.
Now they're trying to remember this pharmaceutical that they need to order. They have a meeting later on. Their wife might be going in labor.
They got their own thing, yeah.
They're human.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the thing that I think like almost is a mismatch. Where, like, this person comes in as like, I'm a consumer, I pay, I get. And then this person is like, I want to provide service, but I have all these other things. And medical malpractice is a motherfucker, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's this like looming, imagine, for people listening that are not in the medical field, everything you did is micro-analyzed with like Big Brother over your shoulder. Like, yeah, you screw this up, we're going to sue you.
Potentially,
You screw this up, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're going to slap on your wrist, you're deducting your pay. Like,
yeah.
I just want people to see both sides, because I don't want to like victimize the patient or the doctor here. I just want people to understand that like everybody's trying their best and the system's fucked.
Well, that and humans are prone to error. Like it is what it is. The most interesting thing about that whole dynamic is like, when you turn this into a commodity where the patient pays for their insurance and ultimately is paying for healthcare, right? they want certain outcomes. Now, some of those outcomes we are aligned on. Yes, we want you to maximize your health span, right? It's not just years on your life, it's life in your years. We want both, right? Okay, we're agreed. Where we may differ is say, look, you got a runny nose, and I'm telling you it's most likely a viral infection. You're like, no, I want the antibiotics. And I'm like, I really don't want to do this for many different reasons. One, I don't want you to take unnecessary medications because there are no biological free lunches. That's thing one. Thing two, if I inappropriately prescribe you antibiotics, or two, I'm concerned about superbug potential if we all did this, right? And then, three, if this is something else, I don't want to mask it with antibiotic. Okay, so all of these reasons, right? And they're like, no, but I still want the antibiotic. And then they can go, after the visit, they don't get the antibiotic, write me a terrible review, which ultimately harms my business. So I'm incentivized to practice medicine in accordance.
Dude, that's tough. I really appreciate you sharing that, because the other avenue that they're thinking about is, oh my gosh, I got 3 kids. If I take time off work, I can't pay my bills.
Yep.
I need the antibiotic so I can get back to doing what I love. I mean, it's the same reason why people fall into addiction, whether that's caffeine, cocaine, alcohol, marijuana. They're like, oh my gosh, I need this thing so I can keep doing the thing.
Yeah.
And that's tough, man.
And when you look at the evidence, the more closely that the prescribing habits and the treatment patterns align with the patient's wishes, the worse the patients do. Mm-hmm. And so, there's some controversy even amongst informed consent, right? Like, I'm going to present to you the risks, the benefits. I'm going to do my best with science communication, but does it really land? Can it possibly land in that 5-minute window?
Dude, that's a really good point, because it's like the little kid that goes to the grocery store and they're like, Dad, I want the candy. And you're like, I kind of want you to shut up so I can do our grocery thing. And I kind of want to give you the screen. But it's like, in doing that, I unlock a whole other set of problems. So it just goes to show, everything costs something, or there's a price to pay in some capacity.
Yeah.
But also, we had this conversation the other day around, and this isn't, just to men, but I'm going to verbalize it this way. There's a difference between a nice guy and a good man. Ooh. And a nice guy is like, I don't really want to deal with the conflict right now. Here's the candy. A good man is cognizantly like, okay, what's the current problem? How could this potentially unlock a macro problem, right? Like a global bug, like you said, in relation to the antibiotics. I'm going to do the next right thing, but the next right thing is not the fucking easy thing right now.
Yeah.
This is going to unlock tension. My child's going to cry. They're going to freak out, and I'm going to have a public display of this while trying to execute X, Y, and Z. However, doing the next right thing, for me personally, I don't want to speak for everybody, I can sleep better at night.
Yeah.
I can look myself in the mirror when I'm brushing my teeth and just be like, man, I respect you. What you did was not easy. Didn't put money in your bank account. Didn't get you a pat on the back. But it's like, you did the next right thing. How do we motivate and inspire more people to do that and create that subtle filter? Because it's not incentivized always.
Yeah.
In the short term.
Yeah.
But it's incentivized in personal and self-respect. This episode is supported by ALLSMITH Apparel. And honestly, this isn't just merch. It's a reminder that growth is forged, not found. That discipline is care. That consistency is freedom. That community is medicine. We created ALLSMITH for the people chasing something deeper than just aesthetics. People building businesses, healing, starting over, showing up tired, but showing up anyway. People truly seeking edges. When you wear ALLSMITH, you're not just wearing a logo. You're wearing a mindset, a conversation starter, a flag for people who believe movement, mindset, adversity, and intentional living can help shape a beautiful life. We are ALLSMITHs. Check out our latest apparel drops and our ALLSMITH apparel at allsmith.co. And thank you for helping us build this thing together.
Yeah, well, how do you incentivize, delayed gratification, right? And I think that's challenging. I don't pretend to have an answer to that, particularly when it comes to medicine, prescribing patterns, ultimately lifestyle behaviors, whatever, right? Imagine you're telling a person, you're like, look, I want you to start exercising. That's if you can do just one thing, I want you to start exercising. And I truly believe if I could have people do one thing, it'd be more exercise. And you're like, what do you mean for weight loss? I'm like, nah, not really worried about the weight loss, because exercise, if anything, has a pretty modest effect on weight loss. But it has so many positive effects independent of weight. Basically, every organ system in your whole body improve with exercise. I just want you to exercise. I can make a very attractive pitch here, right? But then the person, they go work out once, they're like, well, nothing good happened. They work out twice, nothing good happened, you know? And so you're trying to, how do you do that, right? And I think what you would really want to do is leverage various sort of pillars of support along the way to make it somebody's default behavior. So what are the objections a person has to exercise? For example, 50% of people who currently do not exercise say that the reason why they're not exercising is because they're afraid of injury. And you're like, okay, well, is this an educational thing? Do we need like a PSA on like the actual injury rates from exercise, which are actually relatively low, about 2 to 4 injuries per 1,000 participation hours? You compare that to something like soccer, rugby, or whatever. Now you're in the double digits, right? Even running, for example, for a novice runner is about 17 injuries per 1,000 participation hours. And people aren't saying, oh, don't run because you're going to get hurt. Okay, so let's exercise. Let's lift some weights. So is it an educational component? Is it a social component where, I want you to go with friends? So now you have some not only accountability, but also like, because you guys are all going together, it becomes like part of your habit, something like that. Is it having more access to gyms or green spaces to exercise? Like you would just want to make the sort of decision-making process as easy as possible so people aren't having to it becomes their default behavior. Maybe the cleanest example is the food environment. Mm-hmm. Food environment defined as what foods you have immediately accessible to you, and you can kind of scale this. Is it in your home? Is it in your home and your office? Is it your home office community? Is it your home office community and the country, right? The culture you live in and stuff?
What I'm hearing is that the convenience leads to the compliance.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? So if you don't have the cookies in your house, you can't eat them.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have a person maybe who's struggling with their weight and is really on this weight loss journey, for example, and their partner, for example, always brings home snacks and treats and whatever. And you're like, this is sabotage.
Yeah.
The person has to go to the willpower well so many times just to withstand this, this thing. Why? You're effectively making it harder for them to do it. Or if people live in like a physical activity sort of desert, there's no real green spaces for them to be active, right? And everything's automated. They get in a car, they go to work, sit down. They come back, they sit down, watch TV. It's like, well, yeah, you're asking this person to sort of uproot their habits, and much harder for them. So I just think that to the extent you can make a behavior the sort of default pattern, I think initially you can rely on a little bit of willpower, and that might be a little painful, but the easier you can make it, I think the better the adherence is, which is ultimately
Yeah, that's genius. It's why environment is so important.
1,000%.
It's why they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, GLP-1s obviously have been having not a resurgence, but like they've become very popular, not only for people to take, but also to discuss, and people are on the fence about it. And they're like, well, it's not fixing the root cause. And I'm like, well, it depends how you view the root cause. If you view the root cause of obesity like I do, that is a mismatch between our genes, which have been relatively stable for many, thousands and thousands of years, with the modern obesogenic environment, which has very attractive, tasty, high-calorie foods that are heavily marketed to us, that are ubiquitous, and that, oh, by the way, don't fill us, so we overeat them. If you view that as the root cause, you're exactly right. It doesn't. Yet they work despite that, because they work at the level of the brain to make sure that your appetite and satiety signals are better regulated. So what would be fixing the root cause? Well, we'd have to change the environment. We'd have to change the food environment, and that would require policy change, regulatory change, and I think a lot of people wouldn't like that. They're like, what do you mean you're taking away the chips? Yeah. You're taking away the cookies. I'm like, well, I'm not saying you have to eliminate all of them, but like the fact that they're on every corner, or I've suggested to people, I'm like, hey, why don't you delete the DoorDash from your phone? And they're like, what's wrong with DoorDash? I'm like, because now your food environment has expanded to all of these other options that you wouldn't have access to. And generally the portions are larger, and the amount of calories that people eat from food that they have delivered to their home is higher, generally speaking, compared to what meals are prepared in people's homes. So all these things, and they're like, I don't like that. I'm like, well, you may not like it, but these, if you really want to get to the root cause, that can be uncomfortable.
I agree, man. I first started very aggressive on that side of the GLP-1 argument.
Oh, you were anti?
I was very anti, not so much just because of...
Can I ask why?
Yeah, the reason why I was anti originally is because I'm very inspired by who you become in the process of doing hard things.
Okay, you think there's some like unspoken transformation process that happens if you were to achieve.
Yeah, so psychologically it creates the ideology of like, oh, I can get to the awesome lake without having to hike there. You can drive there.
Yeah.
However, from my now experience with clients that have taken it, you know what's been really interesting? Because they started getting the weight loss, they got more intrinsically motivated to become bought in.
It's like the positive feedback cycle.
Yeah. And so a lot of my clients now are like, oh, well, you know, this seems to be working now. I'm going to train harder now.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat better now. I'm going to not drink so frequently because what I'm doing seems to be working.
Do you mind if I stress test your
Please do. This is fun for me too, because like I'm playing with it in real time, where in the beginning I was so fucking judgmental. Now I've seen positive results from it, but more importantly, thankful to our ALLSMITH community. People have been bought in around, like, from my limited knowledge on the side effects, the big one for me is bone density for aging women. And I'm like, well, if you're coming in and you're still getting impact, you're still increasing your bone density. It's showing proof of concept on the DEXA scan. So I'm like, I don't really have a problem with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's play.
Well, so I think originally that original thought, I think you voiced it very carefully and very well. And I think other people have this thought. They're like, look, you can't do it without the drugs. Taking the drug, you're taking a shortcut, because you're missing, again, these transformative steps, whether it's psychologically, whether it's habits-based, whatever, you're missing it, which kind of assumes that there's some deficiency in people with obesity. Like psychologically, they're not set up for success. Mentally, they're weak. They're not intelligent enough. You could go on and on and on. I'm not saying that you're saying anything, but it sort of, again, assumes that there's something missing and that they can only reclaim it by going through the process white knuckling. And I don't think that's true. I think that individuals with obesity, generally speaking, have a similar level of intelligence, of work ethic. You can look at people in great success, whether they're Nobel Prize winners, whether they're titans of business, whether they've achieved high, standing in public office or whatever. There's a lot of obesity everywhere, right? The whole point is, if you really accept that it's a genetic and environment mismatch, then it's not somebody's intelligence. It's not somebody's work ethic. It's not somebody's, as my grandmother would say, chutzpah, that's like allowing them to do this thing. Really, it is something outside of their control, and they're trying to control it at least 8 times in their life on average. And so if you give somebody a little more support in these cases, I like to refer to these drugs as behavior change agents. You give them a little bit of support, and then they can do the thing that they always wanted to do. Now, can people abuse these? Sure. Are there risks? Also sure. But I think that also has to be balanced against the risk of not treating obesity.
Can you call the name one more time? Habit change.
So sometimes we talk about social change agents.
Sure.
So like a behavior change agent.
Yeah, I like that name better.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with what you said.
Yeah.
But here's where I will push back a little bit. And also I want to paint the picture for the other side, because it's like, I know a lot of people that are so fit and so jacked. They have fitness, but then they're broke. They're a brokey.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? You're
right?
like, well,
so
you
like,
did this hard thing.
Yeah.
Why can't you budget?
There should be transferable
Just
skills.
Make more money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like, that's something that really stands out to me, is like, that conversation doesn't float to the surface a lot.
Nope.
And I think it should.
Yeah.
Because it's like going back to the 7 F's that we talked about. The goal is to get all of those to like 7 to 10.
Yeah.
Right? Somewhere within that above 70%, so you're at least getting a C.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think a lot of people look at image now, and they supersede and create a social hierarchy of like, oh, I'm better than you. But I know a lot of fat people that are wealthy as fuck.
100%. Yeah.
That are like, hey, I'm money motivated. I'm really good at doing X, Y, and Z. And like, that over there just doesn't really allow me to win capitalism. So F that. And like, they kind of judge each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, the answer is exactly what you said. If you have a behavior change agent, I wanted to call it an analytic behavior change agent, like a GLP-1, here's my question for you. Do they eventually come off of it? And then for somebody over here that's like trying to get financial fitness, we can call it for a term today. Let's just say they hire, a financial advisor. They're using certain apps to budget their money better. And then they're learning to invest. Maybe they have a little bit of retirement. It's like, okay, maybe they give up a little bit of their aesthetic, a little bit of their gym time to like gain more here. Maybe these guys, give up or self-sacrifice a little bit of their monetization to hire a coach and create some consistency that works with the behavior change agent, the GLP-1. To me, that's the beauty of barbell medicine. It's the intersection of it all, rather than pick my team or pick my team. I'm right, you're wrong. Let's fuck off on I'm trying to be right, you're trying to be right. The answer is, what is right.
Yeah. Why or when you can right? You're
Yeah.
Yeah. Porque no los dos.
Ands are so great, by the way. I love it.
We love them. It's interesting, GLP-1. So we have some data on what happens when you take people off of them, right? And so some of it is exact like follow-up data. They follow these people who've been on the drugs for a year or longer, and then they follow them for a year afterwards, after they've come off. On average, people gain back about 2/3 of the weight that they lost, right, within a year. And then it is projected that within 2 years, most of the people will gain most of the weight back. We don't know that. That's more modeling data, right? And so if you agree, or if someone were to agree that the problem with these individuals with obesity who have tried at various points in their life to lose weight, but have ultimately been unsuccessful, is because of a genetic environment mismatch, then yeah, it's just like having genetically high blood pressure, genetically high cholesterol. It's like, well, you're going to probably need this support for life until one of those things changes.
It's the fixed mindset.
The genes or the environment, right? Now, curiously, some longer-term data on individuals with GLP-1s show some sort of durability of the weight loss in excess of lifestyle change. So the problem with lifestyle change, when you look at it in the literature, you have people who get access to registered dietitians, to coaches, and lots of follow-up. They, on average, will lose somewhere between 5 to 7.5% of their initial body weight during the intervention process. And then at a year, it's about 3/4 of them will have achieved that. 2/3 to 3/4, that's like best, most charitable data, right? At 2 years, now you're less than 40%. At 5 years, now you're less than 15% of people have maintained that. And you keep going out. The best number we have on this is about 1 in 10 people who try to lose weight and achieve the 5% weight loss will actually be able to keep it off in perpetuity. And for those people, we celebrate you. Congratulations, you've unlocked, the final boss, which is just like evangelism. You have to tell everybody that you did it. So for everybody else, it's like, do we care how you got there, or do we care first how that you get there, right? If the goal is maximizing health span and lifespan, and that's where I kind of fall. I'm like, I make no judgments. You don't get a gold star for going through life without help, right? Sometimes I make this argument to coaches because they'll be like, if they're anti-GLP-1s, for example, they're like, no, people should do lifestyle first, and like only then, if it doesn't work, should they take a GLP-1? And I'm like, so is you're selling coaching, is your take then that people should try on their own first, and only when they fail should they hire a coach? Mm-hmm. And then they're like, well, no, because coach can help cut the learning curve and help them out. I'm like, yeah, so this can reduce the burden.
You make a great point, and I think it just shows that like the answer is it depends. Depends on the individual. And that's what's so difficult, at least for me, from a marketing standpoint, is that like I'm in pursuit of truth. Mm-hmm. Truth doesn't always market that well.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a really interesting question. So one of my really good friends, he's worked for Pfizer. He's worked for a bunch of different pharmaceutical companies. He's got friends that have tinkered a little bit in the space of creating clinical studies. Mm-hmm. And they've received funding from some of these big companies of like, hey, here's the outcome that we desire. I want you to create the study so that way it looks this way. Mm-hmm. That's something that I think is very interesting for people right now, especially post-COVID. Just the phrasing, trust the science. We're seeing everything with Dr. Fauci right now. We're seeing a lot of people that are just like very distrusting of the world. And I want to point out, I think it's the most prominent study around red meat, where they're like, okay, Jordan can have grass-fed, grass-finished, regenerative agriculture meat from local perennial pastures, and it's high in omega-3s, super clean, and you're eating that with broccoli and sauteed mushrooms and grass-fed butter, and you're going to the gym 5-6 times a week, you're sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night, regular sleep, regular sex, sunlight, all the things. Mm-hmm. And then over here, I'm also eating red meat, but I'm eating burgers.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the bread, I'm eating, ground beef inside pasta, I'm smashing it with overly processed rice, and I've got high inflammation, and my lifestyle's not that good. But you ate red meat, and I ate red meat. Mm-hmm. What I saw in that particular study is they didn't differentiate between the two.
No, and how could you?
And that's what I want to help create some context. I want to gain some knowledge from you, but I also want our viewers to be able to understand that not all studies are created the same. So when you see in Men's Health magazine or Men's Journal, hey, according to this study, right, or take this supplement because of this, it's like, okay, well, why? Can I get into the research? And you're somebody that actually does it, and most people out there are just getting the Instagram hit, and they're like, oh, I should take this thing.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Bubs Naturals. Look, wellness can get noisy. There's tons of conflicting information out there. A million supplements, a million opinions. But what I truly appreciate about Bubs is that they keep things simple. Hydration, collagen, and creatine. Real tools that support real people trying to perform better, recover better, and simply show up better for their life. I use their products consistently, whether it's hydration after training, collagen to support recovery, or creatine for performance, strength, brain health, and longevity. These are staples in my routine. But what I really respect is the mission behind the brand. Bubs truly honors legacy, adventure, service, and living life fully. If you're an athlete, an entrepreneur, a parent, a weekend warrior, or somebody truly trying to feel a little bit more human in your body, give them a look. Use code ALLSMITH to support your wellness, your journey, and support what we're building here with the ALLSMITH podcast. Because feeling better isn't just about vanity, it's about capacity. And capacity changes lives. Make the rest of your life the best of your life.
No, the research to me is fascinating because it protects me from myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, to be human is to err. And so it's like, okay, I have my own biases, right? And my own assumptions, my own belief systems ahead of time. And if I just read one paper, even if it's a big paper, right, and I don't take that into context with other papers, for example, or other research, then I'm siloed and I could come to the wrong conclusion. And
Sure.
I think ultimately, with the red meat question, this is interesting because there have been a number of studies that have continuously shown out that, look, the more red meat that people eat, the higher rates of colon cancer, colorectal cancer, for example, right, and various other medical conditions have been connected there as well. The problem is you perfectly made it, right? They are not differentiating people who are eating what you would consider high quality red meat and basically high quality dietary patterns, healthy dietary patterns. And what happens in these what we call observational studies is that you pick up artifacts or confounders, basically other variables that are more responsible for the observed effect. And so in the red meat studies, the way I interpret these, and admittedly, some of this is speculative because how do you know until the perfect study has been ran? And so a lot of this ends up being speculative. In dietary observation studies, high red meat tends to travel together with low dietary fiber, high amounts of processed food, a handful of other, we'll call them unhealthy dietary components, right? When I talk about dietary pattern, like this, what do you eat on average? So it's just an unhealthy dietary pattern. And so when I see a signal of red meat, I am very skeptical that it is the red meat itself causing the issue or if it's the dietary pattern overall. So ultimately, and that's kind of where I come to for a lot of different dietary answers. I'm like, the idea that it's one macronutrient or within one macronutrient, one particular food source of that macronutrient, to me seems, wow, I'm going to need a big study that's done everything really, really elegantly for me to accept that. Because I think mostly what you're observing is the effect of the general dietary pattern of the person who eats a lot of red meat, which to your point is burgers or processed food that's in a meat dish, for example. It's not the person who's ultimately eating a high dietary fiber intake. And in fact, this has been studied, right?
For sure.
And so, yeah, when people are like, should I cut down on red meat? And I'm like, okay, well, generally speaking, I do want people to eat a more plant-forward diet. Because to me, most people don't eat enough vegetables or fruits, and that's, again, also in the research. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, look, yeah, let's do that. Do you need to avoid the steak? Do you need to avoid the red meat? I'm like, that's not the first or even the first 5 changes I'd usually make to a person's diet.
Yeah, totally.
But if you were a health maxer, and let's say the person is eating that diet, grass-fed, grass-finished, whatever, if you prefer that, it's the right amount of energy. You're not a lot of processed food. Everything's going great. You have a 10 out of 10 diet, 12 out of 10, to use your phrasing. Mm-hmm. Would it be better for that person to shift some of the animal-sourced protein, particularly from red meat, to plant-based sources? And right now, I would have to say, look, some data suggests that's true. I'm not very confident because the study that I would need to see run to feel confident in telling you to do so does not exist. So best guess is that I don't think it matters for most people.
Do you think it doesn't exist on purpose?
No, I just don't think you can do it, is the whole thing. So what a lot of dietary studies, they suffer from confounder stuff for big observational studies, which is really the only way you can run these like sort of long-term follow-ups, right? Because if you take a condition like heart disease or colorectal cancer, it's not going to show up in a 16-week study.
Yeah.
You got to have multiple years.
Yeah, for sure.
And then to do a multiple year study,
time. That's hard.
And you're like, well, how do I control all these variables?
Try to create compliance with those people is tough unless you like they're literal lab rats.
Right, exactly.
Which is tough. We've had Dr. Sean Baker on the show for the carnivore diet. And what I'm really curious about with you is like a part of me really wants to believe when like researchers and doctors and scientists are like, hey, I'm doing this study. But then the other part of me, going back to our kind of theme of this conversation, is the human nature, which is like, in order to conduct a study, what do I need? I need funding. That funding comes with something. Like we've experienced it with like people that wanted to be like podcast sponsors. They're like, hey, Bryce, if we give you this and you do our advertising, these are the types of guests you're going to have on. Here are the types of conversations you're going to have. And I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, can't do it.
I'll bootstrap it. We're good.
Yeah.
And it's like, how much of these studies come with strings attached and control, and then it's manipulating the data, then changing the behavior because it's creating buy-in to the public from people that are perceived experts. And so many people are like, well, this is what we learned in school. This is the food pyramid. This is the thing. Yeah. But then you get like the disruptors, kind of like Paul Saladino a little bit. You're seeing some things from Dr. Sean Baker. You're seeing things from Rogan. You're seeing things from Brigham Bueller. I'm not saying they're right.
Yeah.
But I am saying that like they kind of carry some influence too. And they can create change. For the general consumer, now when they see, according to this study, they're stiff-arming it.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe the hottest take, if a single study changes your behavior, I don't know that you should be making behavior changes based on a study.
Wow. Well, that's big right there. That's good.
Yeah. So I think research, generally speaking, it gives you the address of like the ballpark, puts you in the ballpark. Now, what section you end up sitting in depends on how much other evidence and expertise that you've consumed and acquired, right? Because I could sit in the same ballpark as, a dozen other clinical researchers or physicians or whatever, and we land in different places based on not only our experience, but what other evidence we've read and such. But we all agree, like, yeah, your diet should be mostly unprocessed, ideally with the right amount of energy intake, high in plant matter, particularly fruits and vegetables, whatever, right? And somebody else might say, yeah, I don't think red meat, I think we should limit it. And I'm like, I don't feel so good about that. We're just sitting in different sections, but we're in the same ballpark. But the whole point is, if somebody I read this one study and now I'm in a different ballpark, I'm like, that suggests to me that you don't have enough foundation to really make that decision. I'll tell you this, I've read hundreds of studies this year alone. And it's not a flex, it's just like, look, I'm a nerd and I want to know. and further, then I can kind of suspend some of my own bias to the extent I have insight into that. None of them have changed what ballpark I'm in.
Yeah.
None of them.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I was listening to a thought leader yesterday while working out next to you. This is who I had in my ear. And he goes, yeah, I've got confidence in what I'm saying. The guy was like, well, why? And he's like, because I've done shit that you're unwilling to do. I've read I appreciate the humility of like, oh, it's not a flex, but it's like, it should be. Like, how many people are actually reading hundreds of studies? They're not.
Yeah.
So that's why I appreciate, like, when you come with a hot take, I'm like, well, I want to dig into this, because the hot take wasn't just, I woke up and while I was taking my morning shit, I came up with this opinion. It's like, no, this came over reps.
Yeah. No, like I have questions just about the universe, and most of them happen to be related to like human health and human physiology and such. And so to try to find an answer, I'm like, wow, this process is going to take longer than I want. I can't just have the thought and then go looking for things that verify that thought. I have to look at things that either support that claim, and then I have to look at things that reject that claim, things that complicate those claims. Oh, were my premises even right? I think it's called the Duhem-Kine thing. So anytime you test a hypothesis, you're actually testing a bunch of other assumptions too. And so that if your hypothesis is wrong, well, you can either reject wholesale your hypothesis, or the underlying assumptions might be faulty too.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's I think the classic study or story about that has to do with like predicting where Neptune is in space. It's like it didn't line up with what the ancients had like predicted, and so they had to use a different formula. Like, oh, we were just missing some knowledge, and using this formula predicts exactly where Neptune is.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then they had a same one about another planet, right? And so same formula, let's go. And so then they said, oh, well, there should be a planet here. We're going to call it Vulcan.
Yeah.
Vulcan doesn't exist. So again, something's wrong with the underlying assumption. So anyway,
You think we went to the moon?
yeah, I think we went to the moon.
Tell me more.
I don't know enough about it to have a confident opinion, but I think and the reason why I say this is as follows. I know how difficult it is to get a room of doctors to agree on a single thing, and they are less scientific than the physicists and the engineers and everything else that went into orchestrating the whole thing.
What do you think about like the 1969? There's that meme that circulates. I have friends that send it to me, and he goes, right now when I get into an elevator, my phone runs out of service. But you think in the 1960s, a bunch of guys that were playing hopscotch on the moon called in to the president and let him know that it was one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And he's like, we were on white like antenna TVs at the time, like all this shit. He was like, I'd call bullshit on that. And like he goes off, and I was just like, it's an interesting perspective. I don't know that I have an opinion, but I'm always very curious what thought leaders think.
Yeah, I don't have a take other than like it would seem highly unlikely that people who are generally disagreeable, scientists at large, especially these kind of scientists, would all be in on the same fix.
Yeah. I mean, also just that many people that are working on that project. What are your thoughts on the, sorry, we're going on a tangent right here. I'm just fascinated on this. What are your thoughts on like some of the people that, like Buzz Aldrin, who said they never went to the moon?
Okay.
And then when they asked like Neil Armstrong to swear on the Bible, he like got super upset.
Okay.
And then some of the different scientists that have said they're going to reveal information, then got killed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about this stuff to have a super informed take. I guess my thought is, sometimes I'll get asked like questions that I think are beneath me in some sort of level. And I'm like, if I entertain this question, I'm ultimately platforming it on some level. So I'm just going to reject. So I can see it, but at the same time, like, I don't know enough about it to have an opinion.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. But I am freaking curious.
Curious, yeah.
Because like growing up, I always wanted to like be an astronaut, and then I just got too tall.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and I was like, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. And I was like, oh, I love the planets. I think this stuff is so cool.
Yeah, it must be nice to be tall. Right? Yeah, what's it like?
It's funny because in basketball, I was always like, I felt small. But now in CrossFit and then in doing a squat, man, I feel like I'm going down like 3 broken elevators.
No, every single rep that you do on the squat is like 3 for me. Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, I used to bullshit. Thank you for saying that, because I used to like argue with my friends around like force times distance over time. My distance, I'm running like a mile and a half, and you're running a mile. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what they would say, and this also has been tested to some degree, the longer you are, the longer levers that you have, you tend to carry more muscle mass, and you have a longer period of time to create acceleration on the barbell. So perhaps,
it's helpful on something like snatching.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the things you're better at, things that I'm not as good at. But yeah, I'm good at 3 things, and they all happen to be one sport, and sports doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Yeah.
Dude, it's so funny you say that, because now post athlete career, I'm like, you know what? I want to like fill the sleeves a little bit. I want to put some muscles on my biceps, and like I'm trying so hard to do it. You see me do my pull-ups, more curls than I've ever done in my life. Mm-hmm. All I'm doing is giving myself elbow tendonitis. Like this shit's not growing, man. Like maybe it's my food. But I also think it's kind of funny in the sense of like there is a genetic component, there's a size component. Like
100%.
But
if you were 5'4", you'd be yoked.
You'd be huge.
Yeah, but no one would know you because you would never play basketball.
Well, they wouldn't see you because they just see right over you.
A different camera setup. Yeah.
I want to talk about the biohacking space, man, because everybody's into like red light therapy, sauna, cold plunge, these supplements, that supplement. Mm-hmm. But I feel like a lot of people are stepping over hundreds to pick up pennies. Ooh. Right? And like, what did Louis Simmons say? He was like, hey, there's no point in having, $100 shoes and a 10-cent squat.
Yeah.
And so what are your thoughts around a lot of people that are like obsessing over health, but they're actually making themselves less healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is new. It's just now we have the internet and social media. I mean, the quest for eternal youth, the fountain of youth, the longevity has been a thing.
Brian Johnson.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been a thing since humans discovered they were going to die, right? Like, so it's not new. I think where it gets interesting here is like, where do you draw the line as far as like regulation or self-experimentation, autonomy? Like, it's very complicated. So here's the thing. I do think that people should be able to sort of do things that are likely to help themselves, right? I also don't want to overregulate things that we know harm people, because it's like, well, if you do this under informed consent, like do your thing. The problem in the biohacking space is both sides of the scale tend to be like unknown or foggy, at least, right? And so that doesn't represent everything in the biohacking space, but for like peptides, for example, a lot of these peptide drugs, you don't know what the risks are, you don't know what the benefits are, and it's just kind of like, okay, good luck.
The other thing I think it's important to note there that you made a good case for, if you guys have not checked out Jordan's Instagram, like you've got some great stuff associated with peptides on there, and because it's floating the surface, hot topic, like check it out if we don't get to discuss it today.
Yeah.
But very similar to like coaching and certain things. Cheap is nice, but you'll buy it twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it's like people are making these decisions like, oh, I saw it, on this website and it seemed cheaper. I could buy it wholesale. So now I don't need to go, to the local med spa and purchase it anymore, whatever. And it's like that you don't know the quality of that. You could purchase anything on the internet. You're going to get, the alcohol pads, the syringes. You're going to figure out dosage based on ChatGPT, which may or may not be right. You could be helping yourself. You could be hurting yourself. You could be doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. That's what
people just don't know.
That's what I feel about the biohacking space. Like most of the stuff, we just don't know if it works. Now, the whole point is if it has a relatively low risk of being harmful, and then the real risk is like somebody's money. And I'm like, that's your money. Do what you want. But I think my main take is like, where's the glow up for blood pressure management or like lipid management, cholesterol, or, metabolic health, for example, right? I'm like, look, if you're going to spend thousands of dollars on a red light, therapy, on, various supplements or whatever, I'm like, your blood pressure better be optimized. Your cholesterol levels better be optimized.
Well, that's why I said what I'm said, because here's what I'm seeing. You mentioned the squat, the press, the deadlift. Mm-hmm. I'll throw pull-ups and dips in there.
Sure, yeah. 5
things that I think you get a high ROI, but they're hard. It's not a cable machine. It's not a seated knee extension. Some of those things can be great accessories. They can help with injury rehabilitation for sure. But it's like the simple works. A black tee and jeans always works.
Yeah, thankfully.
Thankfully. But it's also just like, if you know what works, why are people always like, oh, I found this hack to get sort of what I think is cognitive benefit, but it's not real benefit. So I'm going to get the red light therapy. I'm a big fan of sauna cold plunge because I feel good after. I can do it in a social setting. It allows for depth of conversation, but I'm also like, I'm not going to sauna cold plunge over squatting, pressing, and deadlifting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do those things over trying to maximize sleep.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like there has to be a hierarchy as to like where these things fit and the minimal viable dose as to how much benefit you're going to get.
That's the whole thing. It's like, look, if you got all of these sort of lifestyle factors, so exercise, dietary pattern, sleep, social relationships, that's a check. Cool. Now you've got all of your sort of, we'll say under the hood parameters in check. Blood pressure, cardiometabolic health, so on and so forth, all under optimized. Great. And you want more than that? I think there may be incremental, I'm open to the idea that there's incremental benefit to be had with other things, whether it's supplements, whether it's different sort of things that you do, like sauna, for example, or plunge, cold plunge, whatever. But I think if you're doing those things first and you haven't had your blood pressure measured in the last year, I'm like, well, what are we really doing here?
Yeah.
Or if you're doing all those things and, you've got a nicotine habit. Like, okay, like it doesn't mean that it's still not helpful, but it's like, perhaps that effort is better spent doing something else, which is actually brings me to an interesting point, right? I made this post about how there's no single mode of exercise that adequately gets people the maximum sort of health benefit from exercise. It just doesn't exist yet. So it means you got to do multiple things. I didn't know this was a hot take. Turns out is a hot take according to the algorithm.
If I just do this one thing.
According to the algorithm. The whole point here is like, you don't want a person who sold a bill of goods just do this type of exercise. High rocks, for example, Pilates. No hate against either of them, right? And they're expending enormous amounts of effort to do all these things. And they just think, I'm doing it right. And then they're missing something still, right? That's my whole thing. You have a finite amount of effort, willpower, time, resources, etc. And if you are allocating them to things that are either have marginal benefit or are actively missing some things, and there are things still left on your plate that we probably should have addressed first. That's where
I love this take because I think I hinted that one of the first people I gravitated towards was Mark Sisson, the founder of the Primal Blueprint. Mm-hmm. I loved how primal he made things. He had his 10 ancestral laws. He related like grok versus krog. Grok was like your prototypical caveman, did all the right things when nobody was watching. Krog was like modern day, like comfort crisis. Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing very interestingly in relation to what you're saying is there's seasons. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, CrossFit was phenomenal. It's incredibly linear. There's very minimal rotational stuff. There's very minimal like flexibility outside of Olympic weightlifting. It's very aggressive on your labrums, the gymnastics, and your hip labrums with all the squat patterning and the speed, when everything's measurable in that particular sport. High rocks kind of is similar, just less skill. Mm-hmm. Still high capacity, a lot of impact, 1,000 meters in between every modality. It's a lot going on, and it's up to an hour, maybe an hour and 40 minutes for some people, maybe even 2 hours for some people. That's a long time to move.
Yeah.
Now we have to zoom out and go, okay, let's look at energy systems. Let's look at patterning. Let's look at rotation. Let's look at how the spine moves.
Yeah. Well, so the thing is, like, we know, just for if we had to distill it all down, we know that there are benefits from being strong, and we know that there are benefits from having high amounts of cardiorespiratory fitness. And when you train these things, yes, you tend to get these sort of ancillary benefits, whether it's flexibility, coordination, things of that nature. But at its core, we're thinking musculoskeletal strength and cardiorespiratory fitness. Okay, when you sort of isolate yourself or fractionate yourself into a particular singular type of exercise, whether it's CrossFit, high rocks, or whatever. Now, these are sports, and so some of the unique elements to these sports are specific to that sport, which is an opportunity cost that you're giving up, or you're giving, that doesn't ultimately contribute to one of those things. Now, for CrossFit, this is the biggest pushback I got. I thought it was going to be Pilates, because generally people with Pilates who are interested in Pilates are like, no, it is good for strength. It is good for muscle mass. It is good for bone mineral
Mike Israetel just came out with the thing on Pilates too. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, the evidence doesn't suggest that to be true. Now, could you do Pilates in a different way where it's no longer really Pilates and you call it, yeah, I mean, all things are possible.
Sure.
Right. But the problem with CrossFit, for example, I think it does. You're going to get the most health benefit possible out of resistance training from CrossFit. You've surpassed that. Great. But you're not generating the cardiorespiratory fitness that we know is consistent with peak health benefit, which is one of the reasons why you see the highest level CrossFitters do all of this extra zone 2 low and slow stuff, which is generally not part of CrossFit programming. Mm-hmm. And so the CrossFitters are like, well, no, that CrossFit develops broad, fitness, and it's high intensity movements, high intensity functional movements done, very. And I'm like, these definitions have no specific criteria. Like, what isn't CrossFit, right?
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And I also will say, we had Mike G on. He's a strength and conditioning coach in the NBA, and he works with Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis, a bunch of those guys. And he made a statement to me: the best ability is availability. The other thing that I think CrossFit does is it just beats up your tendons and ligaments a lot.
Well, that's the thing. There's no auto-regulation there, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, because their whole point is like, no, it has to be intense because that's the only way it works. I'm like, you could do it at 70% and still get a big benefit.
Yes. But that's where the zone 2 also comes in, is tissue regeneration.
And you can do a ton of
blood flow. You can do a ton of it, but it's fucking boring.
Yeah. So people are like, you're like, oh, you're saying CrossFit's bad? I'm like, dude, no. I got my level 1 in 2008. All right, did the MD in 2018. I've coached games level athletes and recreational CrossFit athletes. I've done it. I've done CrossFit myself. The whole point is that if you're saying that, no, this is optimal for health, well, now we have some problems. Yeah. If someone's like, I like to do CrossFit 3 or 4 days a week, and then I do a couple long runs or whatever, and I'm like, oh, cool. Well, it's not really CrossFit anymore. Mm-hmm. You've now kind of added something. It's the strength and conditioning program. Yeah. And they're like,
that's what's interesting to me, is the semantics. Once again, going back to the language of the terminology, where it's like CrossFit is this. In theory, CrossFitters think CrossFit is movement. Yeah. It's lifting weights, it's Metcon, it's gymnastics. Anything that's movement, it's CrossFit. If you see F45, it's a version of CrossFit. High Rocks is a version of CrossFit. And no, I love CrossFit. I'm a big fan of Greg Glassman. I just went to the games a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Huge fan. Stoked that James Sprague won because he's 6'4", big guy winning.
Do you want to hear a Glassman story?
Yeah.
So we're in Hawaii in 2018 for
Ultimate Hawaii Trail Run.
What's that? Well, no, it was a level 1 MD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they were like, hey, you guys are like, I met him in I lived in Santa Cruz, and he was up there over coffee, and he's like, you're Barbell Medicine. I know the Barbell Medicine. We like you guys. So I'm like, oh, who knew? And he's like, anyway, yeah, come out. So myself and Dr. Baraki would go out there. He has a party at his house, right? And so we were talking at his party. He goes, he goes, I think that I think that we're on the same page about stuff, but you're not going to like me very much. And I'm like, why? What's up? He's like, have you seen my dog? And I was like, yeah, his dog's running around. He goes, the dog's name is Rip. He named the dog Rip after Mark Ripito, who we used to work for with Starting Strength and had a kind of a falling out. And I was like, we love that. This is hilarious. Your dog's named Rip after Mark Ripito. Anyway, it's kind of a funny aside, but
The one thing, I don't know much about Mark Ripito other than some of the books that I purchased from Rogue.
yeah.
But the one thing I did really like is, I hated this when I was doing like small law or different like type of squat programs. If you're not scared of the weight on the bar, then it's not heavy enough. And I don't believe in that all the time now. But in those days, I was like, I take that personal. I guess I can put a 5 instead of a 2.5.
You know, that kind of comes back to, it's like, oh, well, we're training, you're exercising. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing it like us, you're them.
Yeah, well said. That's a good point. I didn't even realize how much for you. I've had to deconstruct my ego a lot in the last few years, just because, like, I think I briefly mentioned it. Like, now, in retrospect, I don't believe I had fitness. Fitness had me. I didn't really do anything else. Like, everything else was recovering. It was coaching. It was everything had to do around my training. And now it's like I want my training to serve my life. Like, I'm getting into golf. I'm riding waves a little bit. I just got married. I like hosting social events. I love podcasting. My plate's a lot more full with life experience, which means like, if I'm on our sexy hack squat machine at the compound, I might hit 4 plates instead of 5. Feels a little better on my knee. Maybe I'll add a little tempo to stress out the quads, hamstrings, and glutes a little bit, but I don't really give a shit. Versus before, it's like, if I hit 4 plates, I sacrificed, I left it on the table. I sucked in the gym today. My workout sucked.
Why even do it? Yeah.
Yeah. That's changed a lot for me. How's that been for you navigating kind of this next chapter? Because as somebody that's lifted the weight that you have, there's still that competitive itch that you want to scratch a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was funny. I was prepping 2024. I was trying to go to nationals again because I was going to turn 40. And so I was like, ooh, I'm relevant again. Master's class, baby.
Let's go.
Yeah. And so it was a week out, and I was supposed to do my squat opener and my bench opener. And so my squat opener at the time was going to be 260 kilos, 572. And I went down to the bottom, and it looked like my left leg turned into hot magma. Tore my adductor.
Dude, that's tough.
And so I was like, okay, so this is a different phase of life, rehab, whatever. But like, I had this competitive fire, right? And then it was really disappointing because I'd sacrificed. I put my life on hold for like 16 whole weeks because I had to win nationals, because I wanted to win nationals because I go to Worlds. I've never been to Worlds. That was going to be like my final career arc. I retire, I kiss the plates, I walk off. We're done.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Fast forward 2025, same thing. 16 weeks, same thing.
Adductor again. Bro.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. It's a vulnerable tissue for me, just because I'm trying to rehab and then get back to peak form, and it's just not enough time.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, this is the timeline I'm on, so it is what it is.
Also, it's one of those things. I mean, I don't want to get too woo-woo, but like, the body keeps the score. The hips hold a lot of emotion. The adductor is like close to the groin, close to your balls. Like, it's something that's just like feels vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's going to take some time for sure.
So I've noticed since then, 2023 hit my best total of all time. I've been competing for, at that point, over 12 years. And I'm like,
always drug-free, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, some of the federations I did were untested, but like, it was more of a convenience thing. My first year, again, I squatted 500, I benched 365, I deadlifted 545. And that response was what hooked me. But I'm like, when people are like, oh, what do you think if I wanted to take stuff? I'm like, I don't care. Like, you have to know the risks, right? I don't care like flippantly, but it's like, know the risks to the extent they're knowable, have some monitoring, and try to do it.
The monitoring is huge. Most people, especially down here, just cruise across over to Mexico and then like get short-term benefit and then fuck themselves long-term.
It's DIY, yeah. And I'm like, try to do it in the safe way possible. I have not been motivated to do that because I got like pretty strong pretty quickly, and then like kept getting stronger. I can totally see a use case. So imagine this. Imagine your first year in the gym, you see no gains. Again, psychological warfare. You have to keep showing up for no benefit. And that person's like, should I use drugs? I'm like, I get the appeal. Anyway, so what's happened since that is I went through a phase where I did not enjoy training at all, because I'm like, if I'm not training for a competition, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. Now I'm back to enjoying training again, which is interesting because now I keep getting stronger. Like, I'm getting strong, and I'm like, should I compete again?
Hey.
So, yeah, I don't know. At some point, I'm going to get past that. But, I used to race dirt bikes my whole life. I've gotten out of that. Now I'm into racing cars. which is similar. They always said with age comes a cage, and now I get that. So we'll see. I think I need some sort of competitive outlet.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's not going to be under the barbell anymore. But I feel like I have one more good meet left, and I just want to put it all together. So
I'm excited for you, man.
Thanks.
I feel like you're having fun again when you're in their training. Like your variance is good. Like, you know what else I determine as when somebody's having fun? If they're not so serious. Like sometimes when you're like married, are these my numbers? I've got to document this. I got to video that. And you're just like, yeah, I'm going to go dab it up with my boy over here, chop it up, hear how he's doing, share a little bit. All right, I'm going to go back and hit my next set. You're light. You've got that childlike little pep in your step. So, I mean, from my lenses, go for it, dude.
Yeah. It's like when I get to be about 4 weeks out and I'm like, okay, everything matters now.
Yeah.
I'm usually locked in. It's so funny. My friends who have trained with me or trained alongside me, they get it. They're like, look, you have like 2 serious lifts usually in your program, the first 2. And then after that, we can talk, we can chop it up, we can whatever. Sure. But they just see, they're like, you don't make eye contact with people when you're locked in. Yeah. You just do your work. And then when you're ready to like be social, and I'm like, yeah, that does happen around me.
I totally get it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never hit your numbers. Let me see what my best numbers are. I hit a 350 clean and jerk.
That's sick.
A 285 squat snatch. My best deadlift, dude, is 582, I think, or maybe 587. I thought that I pulled 608, but I miscounted the kilos. And I sent the video to my coach. He was like, you're a fucking idiot.
Should have done 600, yeah.
And I was like, I literally don't think I could have pulled another pound. It was so tough for me.
Okay, here's the thing I hate. And we're getting off tangent. We can get back on. I get a lot of, you're really strong for your size. And I'm like, do I have to get bigger or weaker? Like, what is it? Can we just say that I'm strong? Or just like, you know?
That's an interesting one. I think people, I've gotten that before too, especially like if I have a tank top on, you can see like, oh, I've got some muscles. When I'm wearing like a baggy oversized tee, I just look like a regular guy.
No, I look like a pizza delivery guy.
Yeah, me too. And like you look at like some of these guys in the NBA, like I'll just use head coach of the Lakers, JJ Redick, Hall of Fame career, leading scorer ever at Duke. Looks like a pizza delivery guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like I think there's a look that captures the eye, and I think people are just observant of the look. And I mean, you and I both know a lot of strong dudes, a lot of jacked dudes that are not strong.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm just like, I should have done more biceps curls.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I messed up myself.
I don't know, man. I'm trying to do it now. It's not working.
Yeah, well, we'll work on that, yeah.
I'm pumped for you, dude. When you look at like being tired, being sore, hungry, stressed, or, you know, kind of uncomfortable, right? To relate it to like a baby, like they have that experience, they cry. What are your thoughts on like over-diagnosing human discomfort? Because I definitely see that a lot. Like, oh, I have a headache, and it's just like people reach either for Advil or electrolytes. There's always like something they add. There's never like, okay, what did I do to feel this way? It's like, no, I have this symptom. Let me just fix it. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on over-diagnosing discomfort?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, you know, humans, we try to explain things to ourselves. So that's how we make sense of the world. So we try to see patterns. Maybe they don't exist. Sometimes we invent them.
That's so true.
Yeah, yeah. Or try to have some sort of rational, okay, this happened, which caused this, and that's why I'm having this. So I'll do this to fix it, right? And I understand why people do that. Like, again, because it's a nice, tidy story. And actually, I don't mind when people do kind of take charge and try to do something, provided it's relatively low risk and low cost.
Yeah.
But to your point, when I work with people who are in pain, my initial thing is I'm trying to figure out, like, does this person need to do something specific for this particular pain experience they're having, this injury that they've had? And if not, well, not cool. Now the world is our oyster. So what I mean by that is, like, is this person's knee pain because they ruptured their ACL? If so, we probably need to go see a surgeon just to see if they're a good candidate for an ACL repair, right? And if it's not that, I've eliminated any of the scary diagnoses, for example, then I'm like, I don't know that we need to do anything specific for this. And when I talk to them, we're doing some educational stuff, it is uncomfortable for them because they're like, well, no. I did this weird thing on the squat or the leg press or you know, while I was playing tennis and my knee hurt, right? And so I must have damaged something. We need to fix that thing. And I'm like, if that is your understanding, we have a problem because you don't think that you can get better until that thing is fixed. And I'm telling you that is unlikely to be the source. It's not a pain generator per se, right?
I'd also say, similar to what you're saying, if it's a moment versus like an accumulation over time. I think that particular moment lives rent free in the minds of most people. So they're like, oh, it was that one thing.
Yeah.
Not realizing that one thing was probably the straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly right. Yeah. People are like, I can identify the moment. And I'm like, okay, if this wasn't like acute trauma where, uncontrolled movement, high velocity, high force, which certainly can happen. You were hit by something, someone, again, you felt whatever. Yeah, that can happen.
Your credit card got declined. It didn't get declined because of that one moment. It got declined because of your spending habits.
It's just an overdraft.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then you pay the price. So yeah, I think ultimately instilling a little bit of, I hate saying self-doubt because that's not really it, but it's like when people have this clean story and that clean story is self-limiting, that's when I have a problem with the story.
Yes.
If the story isn't, they're like, look, I got a headache. When I take electrolytes, I feel better afterwards. It's got to be electrolytes. I'm like, all right, it's generally low risk, low cost. Like, I don't think that's the case, but like, go off, King.
Curious from your coaching perspective. What you just said is so perfect. And in the sense of, you can see this in relationships, you can see it in business, you can see it in coaching. You just pick your battles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? It's like,
what are the stakes?
Yeah, there's certain things that like people come in, like the number one thing holding them back is the story they tell themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people come in and, as a coach, a lot of your job is to hold space. It's to listen. Not always to fix. And then you sometimes ask, hey, what do you need right now? Do you need support? Do you want a solution? Blah, blah. And it's funny because sometimes people come in and they're like, oh my gosh, I started taking this thing and it fixed all my problems. And I was like, all right, cool. And then other times, like I'll prescribe somebody 4 sets of something. They're like, absolutely not. I'm doing 3, but I only wrote 4 because I wanted them to do 3.
Yeah.
So it's like hiding vegetables in the omelet a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I think you're spot on. Like there's so much of the mind that plays in a role.
Yeah. If the stakes aren't high, like I don't know that we need to reinvent the wheel here, but when the stakes are high, then I'm like, So for example, let's say you got a person with low back pain, right? And they're like, oh no, I got to go get cupping. Now I don't have a problem with cupping. Okay. I don't have a problem with cupping. To be clear, anybody, the cuppers, do you love it? I love it too. But if the story that somebody's telling themselves is like, there's something wrong with my tissue that cupping uniquely fixes, and I am broken, and until I get the cupping, I will not be fixed or resolved, that is a harmful narrative to me.
But you got to give a high five to the body worker that sold them that narrative because they did a good job.
If the body worker were honest, they say, look, we don't really know how it works, but I think you're going to feel better, and it's relatively low risk. And I'd be like, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
It's the same thing with like going to the chiropractor. You're like, oh, you're a doctor. You probably hate chiropractors. I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
I hate if the message is you're out of alignment. We have to put you back in alignment, and that only then will you be whole and functional. And I'm like, if the chiropractor was like, look, the adjustment might make you feel a little bit better. You got some muscle guarding. This might help you relax a little, whatever. I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's the whole point. Is the narrative holding the person back? If that, then I'm going to intervene. If it's not, then I'm like, okay.
Cupping, chiropractor, acupuncture. These things are tools.
Totally.
You still have to not step over the hundreds to pick up pennies. It just goes back into the conversation around these biohacking modalities. However, here's the other thing that's funny. When you get into the money conversation in wellness, that's slightly outside of healthcare, more in like the wellness fitness space, money gets weird because it's not insurance covered. Some people can use HSAs, health savings accounts, and then some people are just paying out of pocket. Some practitioners go the Walmart approach where they're very cheap and they just want to maximize the clients. Some people are like very expensive and they're trying to like really have some sort of boutique or collection of services that add value. What's so interesting to me in all of this is that the skin in the game matters. If the price that people are paying is not painful enough to actually exercise compliance, they're not going to get the benefits of the science from my understanding, right? The work works.
Sure.
So whether you do the cupping or the acupuncture or, the massage, whatever it is, I find that those things are hundreds of dollars for one session. And you're not really doing the work. They're kind of doing the work for you.
No passive, yeah.
So I'm curious your thoughts there. Like some people are willing to pay hundreds of dollars, let's just say once a week, 4 sessions a month, for a cumulative total of, let's just say, $600 to $800. Mm-hmm. But then the trainer or the fitness professional over here is a $300 a month membership. Mm-hmm. But that requires you to show up. You have to be honest with your food. You have to do the work. That seemingly is not as valuable as this thing over here, which is not really technically as valuable.
Yeah. No, there's some assumptions baked in there too. Or like, going to get a PRP thing, or you got to pay out of pocket and it's thousands of dollars versus like, physical therapy, which is hundreds of dollars, maybe, depending on, or, stim or something like that. Like, I think the way I understand it is as follows. The greater the expectation is ahead of time that something's going to work, which a lot of factors go into that. Past experiences, social experiences, what people tell you, right? What your expectations are overall. The dramatic or theatrics associated with the intervention. Compare big, long needle versus like a massage. You're like, well, a big, long needle with the thing, I don't really know how it works. That's more dramatic, right? Or the surgery, even if it's a sham surgery, your expectations go up and up and up. I think the greater the expectation is that something's going to work, and price certainly probably plays a role in that. As far, then yeah, that all makes sense to me. I think ultimately also, you think about an ongoing, again, delayed gratification, like the trainer. You're like, okay, I know one workout's not going to work, 2 workouts not going to work, 3 whatever, but one session with the chiropractor may be beneficial, or 2 or 3. So it's kind of different. But anyway, I just think that when people's expectations can be shaped before they ever go through any
the
sort of
theatrics matter.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look at the world right now. Like some of these performers, when I've gone to like Stagecoach or just certain things locally here at like Snapdragon or Petco, it's like sometimes the performance wasn't great, but then all of a sudden the lead up, the way they marketed the tickets, the stuff you saw on social. I mean, another option or psychology for people could be like Conor McGregor's recent fight, the lead up. Man. Right. And then like, obviously the knee thing happened, feel for him for sure. Big fan of Conor as well. But I also have to say like, hey, he's a great marketer.
Totally.
Right. And so I think there's something that goes into that associated with health and fitness. Like, can you communicate? Do you have credibility and reputability in the space? Who are you rubbing elbows with? Who's within your community to create that psychological buy-in? Because I know I've had clients that like knew nothing about me in my past, but their friends said that it seemingly worked. And so then all of a sudden 3 of their friends came in. I'm like, heck yeah. But it's also like, it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with my buddy.
Yeah. Like every message has a mouth. And the more charismatic and personable and relatable that mouth is, you can really get have a lot of headway there.
Totally, man. I want to hit you with a couple of heavy hitters.
Oh, shoot.
Stretching.
Yeah.
Massively overrated or misunderstood?
I would say misunderstood mostly. I mean, people think it's like this pillar of health. Like you have to do dedicated stretching of any form, whether it's static, dynamic, ballistic, proprioceptive, neuromuscular, facilitative, partner stretching. They think it's this pillar of fitness that you have to do. And if you don't do it, bad things are going to happen, whether it's injury risk, reduced recovery, reduced performance. And as it turns out, really none of those things are true. Stretching, like strength, is specific. And so the example is, let's say you wanted to build a better squat. A lot of your training would be squats. It wouldn't be leg press. It doesn't say that the leg press doesn't help at all, but it is non-specific. It's general. So same thing with stretching. If you want to get better in a particular posture, position, be able to achieve a certain stretch. Well, it's specific. It's specific to the joint angles, the muscle lengths, the movement velocity, if any, right? If it's dynamic versus static. And so the whole point is this. At the end of the day, do people need to spend more time stretching? And it's like, well, when you look at it, it doesn't reduce injury risk. When you also look at it, it doesn't really improve performance. If anything, if you do it right beforehand, it may decrease performance, but to the extent that matters, hard to say. And further, does it improve recovery? Do people feel better and are able to otherwise perform better? No to that too. So the question would be, what's a great use case for somebody doing dedicated, separate stretching? And to my mind, it would be if your current training program does not address the particular posture, position, or whatever that you are trying to get into. Playing around with that position in a graded, gradual fashion, well, it's fine. And some of that's going to be, quote, stretching, but I stretch with a barbell. You stretch with barbell, dumbbell, machines. We're all doing some sort of loaded stretching. And for health purposes, I can't really make the case that most people would benefit from doing more stretching. They would certainly benefit from doing more training, lifting, and doing some conditioning. But stretching to the extent that it needs to be done, I think it's more if you need to have this sort of, it's a seasoning, it's a topping for something that you want that is outside of what you're currently exposing yourself to.
Best definition I've heard for stretching, man. It's almost like doing a banded lat stretch to get into a better receiving position in the snatch. But 100%. It's like, then you get into the conversation of like active versus passive.
Yeah. Should you have just done some snatch work?
Exactly. Yeah. And you verbalized it perfectly. It's specific to the shape that you're needing for the sport or the activity that you're getting. It's not just like passively stretching.
Yeah.
Unless you have pain or something that's like, on a nerve or something like that.
Yeah. If people are otherwise unable to achieve a particular position or participate in a particular exercise that they really want to do due to pain, and stretching is the sort of bridge to doing that, I'm all for it. But we're not chasing health here. We're not chasing, injury risk reduction. We're just changing. We're trying to get participation, and that's our bridge. So
I like the way you said that, man. I feel like there's almost competing egos between flexibility, conditioning, and strength. I almost feel like when you look in the gym, or at least from the space that we're at now, and I felt this at other gyms that I've been at too, it's like, well, my form of training is better because I'm doing bodybuilding and strength training. And over here, it's like my form of training is better because I'm an Olympic weightlifter. And then, no, my form of training is better because I'm training for high rod. No, my form of training is better because I do Leadville 100s.
Sick.
Badass.
Yeah.
But it's just like, they're all just different, man. And to me, when I look at longevity, when I look at some of the biomarkers that experts have shared, it's like grip strength is really important. Leg strength is very important. Cardiovascular fitness, or VO2 max, is very important. And then pulling from the legendary Dan John, getting up off the ground is probably pretty important, and minimizing your points of contact. Kind of an interesting test.
Yeah, there's one actually. If you were looking for something that predicts mortality, as far as like a physical test, one of the best ones is actually being able to stand up and sit down on the ground without touching. Your knees never touch the ground. Your hands never touch the ground. And so, you're basically trying to do a freestanding, sit on the floor and back up. I remember the first time I saw this study, this must have been like 2012. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this because I can't do it.
Yeah. I couldn't do a pistol coming from basketball.
And then they kept coming out with more research, and I'm like, damn, this is interesting. The problem is that most people can't do this. And so you're like, okay, well, you can't do it. So what do I just give you, a 0? And so like a grip strength test becomes useful. One, it's low skill. You can do it in the clinic, but even then there's some problems with grip strength. So for example, your grip strength when you started lifting weights, right, was X. Today it's probably still X. Has not gone up unless you've trained your grip specifically, in which case now the test is inflated and it's less predictive. So one thought has been, okay, maybe we'll use the grip asymmetry, the difference between your dominant hand and your non-dominant hand.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because trained individuals have less asymmetry than untrained individuals. So then the grip strength becomes more predictive.
Well said. That's a cool little nuance that I was not aware of.
Yeah, the other thing is like the genetic components that track with grip strength also track with things like cardiorespiratory fitness, muscle mass overall, some sort of body composition, a handful of other things. And so it's like, well, is it the grip strength or is it the genetic stuff underlying? So another problem with grip strength is that it tends to track with total lean body mass, right? And so larger individuals, even if they are individuals with obesity, will have high grip strength, even though decidedly high risk of type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, et cetera. So there's a thought, maybe we'll use relative grip strength. So your grip strength to your weight, for example. So anyway, all of these things are complicated, and they get more complicated the deeper you go.
It is interesting, but I also think going back to getting people to do stuff versus not doing stuff. Pharma carries, awesome.
Oh yeah.
And then something that I experienced in college, I was working at a local facility right next to the strength and conditioning facility there at Cal State Northridge. And I was working with people with disabilities. Some of that was aquatic-based therapy. Some of that was land-based. And the other thing that I noticed is people that had pretty good grip strength, that could do farmer carries, hang from a pull-up bar, or, hold on to things while doing curls, presses, whatever. Their ADLs, their activities of daily living, were significantly better. Undoing a garden hose, doing certain things with a door handle, undoing a screw, getting things out of the kitchen. Yeah. And I liked that a lot, especially in watching grandparents and parents as they get older. I'm like, I want to give you the maximum amount of freedom for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
because the moment
activity,
the moment you have to ask somebody to wipe your ass, your confidence level just starts to go down tenfold.
Yeah. I mean, you think about what grip strength actually tests, right? It's, okay, is your brain sending a signal to your muscles? Check. Is the nerve that's transmitting that signal going from the brain to the muscle? Check. Is the muscle intact? Is the bone that the muscle attaches to intact? Are the the tendons that attach the muscle to the bone also intact? So you have this whole axis that all has to be intact for you to do a grip strength test.
Yeah, it's badass.
Yeah. So I think, ultimately when it comes to longevity from exercise, you're really trying to maximize the health adaptations you're getting from exercise, right? And the two primary ones are musculoskeletal strength and cardiorespiratory fitness. right? And so provided, it's fairly easy to sort of top out from musculoskeletal strength. You're like, cool, you're squatting body weight, 1.5 times body weight. The power lifter in me really cries. I'm like, what do you mean I don't have to be as strong as I am right now to maximize the health, longevity benefits from lifting weights? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. I still think you should do it, but you don't have to attain a 3 times body weight squat. Cardiorespiratory fitness is different though. Cardiorespiratory fitness seems to have this sort of dose-dependent relationship where the higher it gets, even to very high, superhuman, elite athlete levels of cardiorespiratory fitness, it keeps being beneficial. And so when people are like, should I lift more or do more cardio? And I'm like, if you're lifting 2 or 3 days a week, you're probably already there. You can do more, to be clear. But as far as moving the needle on health, it's probably going to be more conditioning.
I'm going to have to flip that then, man. My wife played pro soccer.
Yeah.
And so running was always just like that sport's punishment.
Oh, yeah.
And same thing for us in basketball. And like, even today, like, I think like 3 or 4 months ago, my buddy was like, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'm running a half marathon. You want to go? I'm like, yeah, I can figure it out. And like, I was definitely sore. I wasn't breaking any world records. I was like at 840 mile pace, just kind of cruising along.
Yeah.
But like, I could do it just because of the lifetime reps.
Yeah.
So in my brain, I'm like, I've checked that box. I don't really want to do it. However, as I'm getting older, dude, like if you don't use it, you lose it.
Oh, yeah.
And like, we've been chatting about that a lot where it's like, hey, we don't have kids yet. Like when we have kids, like I want to be able to chase them around when I'm in my 50s. I better start like working on this skill a little bit more. And I'm like punching myself.
Yeah. Well, one of the pushbacks I get is people are like, you're telling me I need to exercise a lot more. And I don't like that. I'm like, look, I don't like it either, man. Our environment is currently set up in a way where we're not always in flux. We're not always in motion. That didn't used to be the case. And now it is, unfortunately. So like we have to manufacture that.
Yeah.
The thing is, I was on this podcast, Dr. Jose Antonio.
Okay.
He is one of the head people at the ISSN, International Sports Society for Nutrition. Anyway, and he's like, if you, for longevity, had to change anything about your training right now, what would you do? I'm like, well, I would inverse my resistance training and my conditioning work, but I'm still a meathead, and I can't. Like I still am. I feel like I have a little bit left to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for longevity, well, unfortunately, most people who listen to this already exercise. But if you looked at like the broader general population, I'm like, doing anything. Find exercise that bites you, get bit by the bug, and then we can worry about optimizing later. But,
it's so funny you say that because we've been loving golf. We've been loving pickleball. We've been loving riding waves.
Are you any good at golf yet?
No, I'm terrible.
Okay. Well, wait till you just get. I'm not good.
Yeah,
but
I'm terrible. Every now and then, out of 18 holes, I probably have like 5 shots, and I'm like, oh, that was relatively decent.
Okay.
And every now and then, I'll get like on the 17th hole at Mission Bay recently. I was terrible off the tee. I was maybe like 60 yards out or so with my pitching wedge. Chipped it up, and then 1, 2, 3, it rolled in. I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
this is so sick."
Yeah, now you can't never quit. Yeah,
yeah. And then I got into
greatness.
it. I just got my first clubs that are like extended, so like good for my height.
Again, you're just telling people you're tall.
Yeah,
nice.
You gotta flex somewhere.
Must be nice.
Yeah. But it's one of those things, man, that like in my brain, I check the box. I'm like, oh, we're moving. We hiked cows the other day, and I got the dog on my back. We're good.
Yeah.
But it's not the same, man. There are levels to the game, like being able to like get after some running or doing some C2 bike or assault bike intervals, or even just getting on the Stairmaster.
Yeah.
It's all helpful, man.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So I'm going to try this in a little science, and then I know you have questions, but like this is my pet interest at the moment, so it's fascinating. Okay. So we think the problem with obesity is not necessarily having too much fat. That's not incomplete. It's that your fat is dysfunctional. Okay. And one of the problems is that it goes to places it shouldn't be, and it doesn't turn over. There's no flux. There's no turnover, right? So, for example, imagine you have a bunch of boxes in your garage, right? And it's neatly stored or whatever. You don't have any extra boxes that have to then overflow into your kitchen, into the living room, onto your stairs. You could trip over and break your neck, okay? Now, it's not just the location, though. The problem is those boxes have to be static. So, for example, you taking one of those boxes and carrying it up the stairs or down the stairs, not a problem. But if it's sitting there on the stairs, that's the problem. So imagine this analogy. The stairs are your muscle. So you have fat in your muscle, and it's not turning over. That's one of the earliest signs of insulin resistance, for example. However, endurance athletes have a ton of fat in their muscle. It just turns over all the time. So it's like, okay, it's not just that the fat is there, it's that it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
And
Stagnant.
exercise is one of the things that makes the fat turn over, almost any sort of activity. So like, okay, yeah, doing more golf isn't going to help you lose weight for most people, right? But you're moving. You're out there doing stuff, doing walks around the neighborhood. It's activity, and to the extent it contributes to somebody's total activity load, great. But it's really good at getting those boxes to move. So ultimately, you can see these sort of weight independent benefits from just exercise because it makes in my analogy, the boxes move faster.
I like that analogy, man. The other thing that I pulled from our conversation today is I used to run the Santa Monica stairs there by UCLA.
Oh yeah,
On 7th and San Vicente.
I looked at. I never ran them.
Oh, dude, it's so difficult.
You're just a better athlete than I am. I was like,
I don't know.
I got to squat tomorrow.
The amount that I threw up on those stairs and just like got my ass kicked by the local like postpartum mom that did them every day. Like I have them tattooed on my leg because like the smell of them. It was such a ritual and part of my basketball practice. I was just always trying to be more athletic, and it didn't work. But like I was a tried hard guy.
You're good. Yeah.
But the point that I'm making is in that vicinity, man. Like I met this guy, and I was like, "Hey, man!" Like he was jacked. He was a little older. Seemed very peaceful. And I was like, "Hey, what's the best nutrition advice you have?" And he goes, "Just eat the rainbow, man. Eat lean protein. Treat people appropriately. I surf every day. Knock out my work. Have sex with my wife. Hang out. Eat the rainbow, man." And then the other thing that I'm hearing is like, I stole this from Kelly Starrett. The best position is the next one.
Ooh.
When you're looking at mobility, it's like, just try not to be stagnant. Don't do a 2-hour podcast with your good buddy. And then the other thing that's very important is like movement in and of itself doesn't have to be in alignment with our expectations. Movement is going to add value if you were to do nothing else.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Because everything above zero will compound.
Yes.
However, I do want to ask your thoughts on, is 10,000 steps simply a fucking marketing number, or is that something that you believe is really changing the needle?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think there's a few ways to come at this. I mean, one, it originated as a marketing term. 10,000, I believe, was the like literal translation of the name of the Japanese manufacturer who came out with the first like commercial pedometer.
Oh, okay.
And then the Japanese character for 10,000, which was also the name of their company, looked like a dude walking.
Nice.
So yeah, so some marketing roots there for sure.
Sure.
Okay, so is this a good target for most people? All right, well, how many steps does the average American take? Now, a number of studies have looked at this. It's somewhere between 4,000 and 5,500-ish steps per day. Obviously, huge variance. Some individuals with various medical conditions will walk less. Some individuals who have more active sort of occupational activities will walk more, but let's just call it 5,000 for the sake of argument. Okay, That's just general life, activities of daily life. So now you're going to add 5,000 steps on top of that. It takes about 10 minutes to walk 1,000 steps with the normal gait speed. So now you're asking people to do an extra 50 minutes of exercise per day. I'm for that. But where it starts to get more complicated is you're like, oh, so just do that. And I'm like, well, if you could take those 50 minutes and do it on a bike at 60 to 80% of your max heart rate versus walking, I think that's probably better at improving your cardiorespiratory fitness, which has a better sort of is a better predictor than how many steps you took per day, for example. It's just because the intensity tends to not be high enough for most people, I view it as a kind of an opportunity cost, but I'm trying to weigh that against like, well, look, they can just walk out their door and do it, right? So maybe for adherence, it's beneficial. Also, if people are doing this and it takes 10 minutes to walk 1,000 steps, and now this is 50 extra minutes, that's time outside the house. That's time outside of their kitchen. That's time outside of their food environment where they're maybe tempted to eat, So I don't have a problem with the 10,000 steps. Where I draw the line in the sand is when people go, yeah, that's my conditioning. And I'm like, well, if you're trying to optimize and you're asking my opinion, I might have some additional thoughts on that, but it's still good. Do it,
Yeah.
There was a guy in our forum who was like, hey, I'm bumping my steps to 21,000 steps per day. He's like been doing this for like years. He's like, can I skip some of the cardio in the program that I'm running? I'm like, I mean, you can if you want, but I don't think the steps are contributing to your cardiorespiratory fitness anymore. It's just not intense enough unless you do like the race walker.
Oh yeah,
pace
dude, those guys are so fun. The way they shake their hips.
100%. I don't want to do that in public.
It's their limited ground time.
Yeah.
It's impressive, man. But the rule is you have to have one foot on the ground the whole time.
No flight phase. Yeah, no flight phase.
Funny to me, man.
So yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, walking more generally be better. But I think, again, there's some line in the sand where you're like, you should probably just do more formal conditioning if that's what you're doing it for.
How much of it, though, is potentially like a dopamine addiction around wearables and trackables, right? Yeah. Like, do you think wearables are really making people more healthy or just a little bit more anxious? Because I have clients that come in and they're just like, man, I just hit my step count for the day, or my heart rate was at this, or, my brother, for example, super busy, 2 kids, emergency medicine doctor. And like he lives and dies by his Apple Watch. He'll head out and hop on the rower for 45 minutes. And it's like, it could be just zone 2. He's like watching a show. Something's better than nothing, sure. But it's also just like, hey, what if we hit every 3 minutes for 15 minutes, 500-meter row at a 155 pace?
Yeah. Yeah, you're just optimizing the time spent,
Sure.
which is kind of where I land. I think, okay, my analogy is depression. So major depressive disorder does not have one singular cause. And further, people have there's a heterogeneity or a difference in how people respond to various therapies. Some people do great with SSRIs. Other people see minimal to no effects. Some people don't do great, do worse with them. Some people do great with exercise. Other people, still healthy for them, but they don't see an effect. That's the same way I feel about wearables. Some people, it is very motivating for them, where they're like, oh, I want to close my rings, or I want to do the thing. Other people, it's no effect. And other people, there's a negative effect. They're like, they obsess over it in a way that...
That's what I see with like the recovery score with Whoop. Or so. Like
100%.
when I was wearing that in the beginning, I'm like, man, I shouldn't train today.
Yeah.
And it's like I made the rule I can only look at it at nighttime.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to nocebo yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, you might feel terrible, but if you go in the gym, look, everybody's been hungover and they go in the gym and they have a great performance. And you're like, well, how the heck did this happen?
Yeah.
You're like, well, just suspend your expectations.
Excess sugars.
Totally. So the thing is with wearables is like, it's tough to study, because you'll find studies that say, look, no impact on like habitual activity, and other studies that say, oh, it improved activity. And it's like, you got to look at the subgroups. There's got to be a group of people where this is beneficial. There's got to be a group of people where this is not beneficial, and there's going to be a group it's harmful. Mm-hmm. And so when you're translating some of these findings, again, you read the headline in mainstream media, smartwatches don't do anything. And you're like, oh, that can't be the case for everybody.
Sure.
Anyway.
I like that one. I also think it's interesting when you look at pseudo-celebrities or professional athletes wearing the wearables. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, LeBron's wearing the Whoop, so I should wear the Whoop. Dude. LeBron used the hyperbaric chamber, so I should get the hyperbaric chamber. They're not looking at... LeBron trains this many times a day. This is when he naps. This is the food that he eats. Like, these are all the other protocols that you don't see, but you saw him wearing a Whoop, so you should wear a Whoop.
Did you see, there was a video of him doing like a sumo deadlift RDL.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. Like,
Sure.
no part of it was good.
Sure.
Other than the fact that he's holding a barbell, I guess that's good. And he's got Vibram 5 fingers on the whole thing, right? And I'm like, LeBron has almost unlimited resources. Presumably has access to the best strength conditioning coaches, the best facilities, this, that, and the other. And this is what they're having him do? Mm-hmm. And if somebody sees that and says, oh, I should do that? And I'm like, well, if more people lift weights, I guess I'm happy.
I really go back to the Tim Grover days, man. I thought Tim Grover with MJ and with Kobe and Scotty, like, they did a lot of Bulgarian split squats, a lot of traditional pressing and pulling. The barbell for guys bigger than me is just tough, man.
Yeah. Well, right. There are many instruments that we can use. And look, as a powerlifter, I like the barbell.
Sure.
Barbell medicine. And people are like, oh, you're just a big barbell guy. I'm like, well, for me,
it's a great tool.
Yeah. But like, there are other different ways to get strong and healthy and such.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sleep optimization, man.
Oh boy.
Everybody's talking about it. There's all kinds of magnesiums before bed. The military loves we had a sleep expert that works with Navy Special Forces, and he talked a lot about people on Ambien and trying to get people off of that to get them into a better sleep cycle. We've had people on talk about blue light therapy, when you should have your last meal, blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of curious about this. I saw a study come out around the 8-hour sleep night and how that was kind of manufactured by a mattress company. And I'm kind of one of those people where like, I don't really have a hard time falling asleep. Fall asleep, and then, I'll usually wake up at some point to pee. It's probably what the world says is cortisol, maybe some anxiety, whatever. I'm not really a guy that goes on his phone. I just play with, I think they call it NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, where I'll just kind of like work on some breath work. And then I'll fall asleep, an hour or two later, maybe 90 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes, whatever. But there is a little gap most nights, not every night. And what's interesting is I've seen some things where people called that like the holy time or like the sacred time. Where like
split sleep, you're supposed to pray then, yeah.
Yeah, pray. Maybe it's sex with your partner. Maybe it's the NSDR that I alluded to. I think Edgar Allan Poe and other people like did their writing at that time because it was just the most peaceful, non-distracted time. I've noticed when I'm very keen to ask people, hey, how are you? What's been the best part of your day? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Like I'm genuinely just like, I want to know. And most people are like, oh, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
And then there's this psychology of like, oh yeah, I just don't sleep good. I would say 90% of people that I speak to are like, oh yeah, I just don't sleep good. It's too hot or this problem or that problem. There's almost this looming narrative that like, if you wake up one time, you have high cortisol and you have this problem. And so I almost feel like this sleep optimization thing is creating a form of health anxiety.
Total, yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the idea that we all are supposed to sleep the same, it'd be unlikely to be true from a biological perspective, meaning like the same amount of time, it's all consistent, no breaks.
I look at sleep like food, like do it to match the activity level or the recovery you desire to live the life that you want to live or need to live.
Yeah. I think, practically speaking, a handful of things, and these are things that people generally won't do. So these are things that most people don't say because they're
do
not
these
sexy.
and your life will change.
Yeah. So one, you have to make sure that a person has enough opportunity for sleep. Realistically, they have enough time to go to bed, fall asleep, and get a restorative night of high quality sleep before they have to wake up and do stuff in the morning. So people who go to bed too late for a time they have to wake up too early, they're already shooting themselves in the foot, right? So some scheduling needs to be done.
Yep.
Sleep apnea is incredibly prevalent. It is underdiagnosed and it's undertreated, particularly in perimenopausal women who don't exhibit the typical signs of being the snoring that generally goes along with it in men. And so sleep apnea is huge, and people are like, "Oh, I'm tired during the day." I'm like, "Did you sleep? If you slept reasonably and you're tired during the day, sleep apnea is like that goes to the top of my list. Like, make sure you don't have that." Same thing with parasomnias, although far less common. And then if people have legit sleep problems, whether it's they wake up too early, and here's how you know it's a sleep problem: they have symptoms during the day. Daytime sleepiness, they don't feel like they're well rested when they wake up, they feel like they're not as sharp. There's a sleep problem, right? If you feel fine, like, I'm not going to try to fix something that's not broken.
How do you diagnose or categorize sleep problem versus you overconsume caffeine, you're constantly on your phone, you have money stress, you have shitty relationships? How do those things play a factor?
Well, the sleep problem is the diagnosis. The causes can be multifactorial, right?
Got it.
So, for example, you get a sleep problem because it's sleep apnea. You have a sleep problem because it's anxiety. Sleep problem because of stimulant, So sleep problem, ultimately, you have to have a problem the next day. Again, not feeling up to it. You feel tired, irritable, all sorts of signs of not getting enough high quality restorative sleep. If somebody doesn't have that problem, why are we talking about sleep? Okay. So anyway, people are like, do I need blue blockers? Do I need magnesium? Do I need all of these things can be fine, particularly in as far as they establish habits for people. Okay, I'm going to wind down. This is my bedtime routine and whatever.
Like
and yeah, maybe some unique effect of magnesium a little bit here and there. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is one of the most powerful interventions we have for sleep-related problems, and almost nobody uses it.
I've done it before. It's incredible, dude.
But people don't use it. They're like, no, I just want a pill. And you're like, okay. Or they're like, do I just need better drapes? And I'm like, well, yeah, you might need some blackout shades if you're in a really bright area, or you might need a fan, or you might need a cooler environment. But like CBT is fantastic. And oh, by the way, if you have sleep apnea and you do all of these things, you're still up a creek. And like, it's just too common to like not mention. So anyway, I do think though that you're right. Like when people wake up and they look at their phone and they're like, shoot, it's 2 a.m. Instant panic. They're like, I'm gonna feel tired tomorrow. They can start to spiral. Although again, I don't want to project my experience onto anybody else's or whatever. So a lot of different practical tools, but I think ultimately the first thing you have to establish, do people have enough time to sleep opportunity? And then two, what are the symptoms they generally are experiencing? If they have they don't feel well rested, great. Talk to a sleep specialist, because the internet can sell you 100 different solutions that ultimately don't address the problem that you have, and having a professional work through it, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah. I like that perspective, man. I like that you really try to go through different case scenarios. I find you as a relatively empathetic practitioner.
Yeah, I like that.
Where did you develop that? Is that something from, exploration of your inner child, something you've done with your parents a little bit, or just like a lot of experience in the world where you've just like tried to be in their shoes, where it's just, your perspective of their experience?
That's interesting. No, I appreciate you saying that. It definitely wasn't, I don't think I default to that. I think, if I look back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and I'm like, man, you're kind of a unrefined and maybe overconfident and cocky, and which is not unique for 20 somethings, but
Sure.
Medicine humbles you. Getting exposed to patients can also make you kind of see things a little differently. And then I think, particularly as I've gotten older, I continue to be humbled on a regular basis. And so then I think this is just a natural byproduct of that. It's like when you yourself become uncertain and you kind of have questions and you live through some of your own stuff, you can put yourself in other people's shoes a lot better.
Yep.
And I definitely think it's learned, and I appreciate you saying that, because it is something that I feel like I'm trying to do a good job of, but at the same time, like, it's challenging. It's real challenging.
You're impressive in how you play the social media game, though, because you come in with a hot take that seems controversial, but for people that actually take the time to scroll and swipe and then also read into the caption, what I appreciate is the hot take is a hook. You do a great job of grabbing attention. And then from there, you're like, well, here's why I think that. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes what I see is people have the hot take and then they don't really do a good job defending it. Mm-hmm. So I realized that the hot take was just clickbait, and then I'm disappointed, and then I don't trust the person anymore. It takes that volume where I'm like, all right, strike one, you get 3 strikes, you do that 3 times, I'm either unfollowing or I'm not going to play anymore.
Yep.
And I think that you do a good job of like, here's a hot take that maybe is counterintuitive to all the nuance that we're hearing in the world, but here's why I feel that way. And at the very least, just to pull peptides back into the conversation, there's just not enough information about them yet.
Yeah.
Right? And there's anecdotal evidence, there's case studies, there's people that have experiences, whether that's placebo, nocebo, there's everything in between, but they're still so new.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, for the listeners at home, a peptide refers to a chemical structure, amino acids. You can have it in food, you can have it in supplements, you can have it in medications. GLP-1s, the P stands for peptide, right? And so what we're talking about here are peptide medications, or if you wanted to put a negative slant on it, peptide drugs, although I don't think drugs is a negative term, but I can understand how people feel that way. Insulin was discovered in 1920. We've known about and it's a peptide drug.
Yeah.
We've known about peptides for over 100 years. We have dozens, if not hundreds, of FDA-approved peptide drugs or peptide medications that can be used for various things. All of them have some amount of human evidence that tells us these are the general risks, these are the general benefits that people can expect to get, and what particular people can expect those, and here's what you need to monitor for. All of those were determined from human trials, okay? I'm not telling people that the peptide drugs that are not approved are bad or harmful, or they're dumb for taking them, or that their experience they've had taking them is something that they've created or fabricated, that they're liars. All I'm saying is it would be nice if we had more evidence so that we could make this informed consent about whether or not to use them. And so people are, when the major pushbacks, we don't trust the FDA because of COVID. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with the FDA, right? The FDA, if anything, is impotent right now because, they put on the FDA panel that voted on them, they put people in the peptide industry on that panel to vote for them. Okay. So like, I'm not supporting the FDA here. And they're like, okay, yeah, but why shouldn't I just have access to drugs that I want to take? And I'm like, you want unregulated access to all drugs all the time? You want to be able to take a chemotherapy drug if it's not, if you don't have cancer, for example? You want to be able to take antibiotics even if you don't have an infection? And they're like, well, it's my body, my choice. And I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying. But what that really means is that you can, from a series of available treatments, pick the one you want or reject the one that you want. It doesn't mean you have access to all treatments. That's not what informed consent means. So anyway, all of this is to say people are very polarized about peptides.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I've never seen this with a medication before where it's like, this is my identity.
I think it feels like people are going against the grain.
Oh, like contrarian.
Yeah. And I think the whole conversation with RFK Jr. around like hormone replacement therapy, I think there's definitely an eye test too. When you look at people that were previously, and what's RFK's Jr. The head
HHS.
HHS. You look at the other people in that role, it's like they're fat. They're not capable. And then all of a sudden you look to these social media clips and you see him doing like strict pull-ups and, getting people like Zuckerberg back playing Muay Thai and, doing all these active things where they're seemingly like badass and active participants in the world. They all kind of rub elbows in that like Rogan sphere. I know some people like that. Some people don't like that. They're capable and they can have their judgment. What I'm curious about is why is there so much pushback around, from my perspective, limited side effects associated with things like BPC 157, thymosin beta, ipamorelin, CJC 1295, maybe MOTS-C can be thrown into that. Why is there a lot of pushback on that? And then going back and bringing the GLP-1s into the conversation, I'm not a hater on all GLP-1s, but I really, my eyebrows perked a little bit around Ozempic specifically. And then I saw that they had, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was a $4 trillion lawsuit associated with blindedness that floated to the surface. And then I paused for a second. I'm like, okay, you kind of want to find the truth. You'll follow the money a little bit, right? And then you're like, okay, well, they don't, Eli Lilly and some of these other brands don't give a fuck if there's a $4 trillion lawsuit because they're making so much more money over here that they can just pay that lawsuit, sweep that under the rug. And I think that's what's creating some of the distrust for people is like people are starting to follow the money.
Yeah.
And then they're seeing the side effects over here. It's like, hey, you're romanticizing, not you, but like people are romanticizing GLP-1s, but people are going fucking blind. And then they're also getting digestive issues and other things too. I've not really seen a ton of those side effects from something like a BPC 157.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's important to note that basically every medication that we have has some side effect profile. To the extent of the blindness, it does seem like, we'll see what happens with that case. So watch this space. It doesn't seem like they're the base rate, meaning that when people who take no medications who get these sort of conditions that they're investigating, it doesn't seem to go up with GLP-1s, but you can bring a lawsuit, as you know, for anything.
Sure. I mean, that's the other thing. When I looked at that, I was like, all right.
Yeah, we'll
politically,
see.
Was this side being like trying to demonize that?
Yeah,
Is this side trying to demonize this? So like I looked at it with a grain of salt, but it definitely was something I was like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, follow the money. And so, when you look at these things, right, the problem is there's no monitoring system. So whatever harms may be present or absent are not being detected because nobody's watching. And to your point, to following the money, it's like, well, yeah, like if these peptide drugs, BPC 157, TB500, MOTC, CMAX, DSIP, these things were on this, what's called a category 2 list, right? And the reason how they get on the category 2 list is somebody nominates them to be reviewed by the FDA. The FDA reviews the packet that's submitted and says, okay, yeah, a compounding pharmacy can make these, can work with them or not. And if they're not, they end up on category 2 or category 3. Category 2 goes, I think there's a safety signal here, right? The problem is the original submission did not contain adequate information on safety and efficacy. There's 4 total criteria because there's no human data on these things.
Yeah.
So the FDA filed them away in category 2. Those, the nominators withdrew their nominations in April of this year. They said, you know what, FDA? Don't look at them. Don't worry about it. So instantly they come off category 2 list. So now they're floating around in no man's land. And then they recently, 2 weeks ago, just had this vote. Now, the 7 career scientists from the FDA, so these are people who review pharmacological research all the time. This is their job. They voted no on all of them. The new people added to the panel are all in the peptide space. They sell peptides. They or own a peptide manufacturing facility, and they voted yes. And so of the 7 that were reviewed, all 6 of the 7 passed.
Sure.
And so anyway, so follow the money. Let's apply that same logic here.
Yeah, as you should.
My whole thing is if you look at like the sort of scientific report on each one of these agents, they keep saying the same thing. Not enough human evidence on safety, not enough human evidence on efficacy.
Is that a funding thing? Why is there not enough human evidence?
It's a great question. So some of the drugs on the list are old. BPC 157 is over 30 years old, for example, right? And to date, it's had 1 human randomized controlled trial, but it was never published in a journal.
That's what I question.
Yeah, it was
because there's so much funding towards things that seemingly are more monetizable. Yeah. And what I'm curious about from your perspective on this particular topic is I've heard, and I'm no expert, but I've heard that you can't patent peptides because they're signals to things like the pituitary gland. Like I'll just use CJC or testosterone, for example, to signal the pituitary gland to release more natural human growth hormones. So the FDA or whatever agencies cannot patent those drugs.
Yeah.
So they're not as monetizable as big pharma.
Yeah. Well, I would bring that back to, so what people say, oh, these are natural hormones or signaling molecules, if they don't want to say hormones, because again, hormone's a dirty word. Yeah. Since they're natural, you can't patent them. Well, all of the ones that you would take from outside of the body are synthetic. So that's thing one. They're not natural.
Yeah.
And while they may be naturally occurring, you can patent those all the time. GLP-1s, all patented. And for example, and you make GLP-1 in your body, insulin, you make patented. There are patented ways to deliver it. In fact, BPC 157 has been patented multiple times. The manufacturing process, you can patent the delivery process, you can change the chemical itself, patent that. There are also patent-free market protections available. So why these things haven't been studied is interesting. So BPC 157 is one of the ones we know the most about, its sort of provenance. It was discovered in a pharmaceutical lab from a company called Placebo in the 90s. That the IP to BPC 157 has been acquired by at least 2 other pharmaceutical companies, and each one of them started a human randomized controlled trial, and both of them were shut down early. Why? We don't know. But to me, if
That's getting my conspiracy mind going, man.
well, if these things did half of what people said, right? Heal tendons, reduce pain, or whatever. Dude, do you know how many billions of dollars are in that?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be conspiracy minded. I'm just saying, where there's money to be made, pharma is going to be there. And this was discovered by big pharma. And so, anyway, all of this to say, I don't care about any of that.
Yeah.
I care mostly about, well, can we just get some evidence, some data here?
Yeah.
And so right now, there is a trial that's enrolling. It's on acute hamstring strain with BPC 157, and they're going to use MRIs to look at how these people's hamstrings recover.
It's a tough injury too.
Yeah.
Hamstrings are complex.
And they're going to test against placebo. Now, the problem is, how are you going to get funding for that if people can just get it already?
Yeah.
So
or get a thing that has the label of it on there
100%.
and have no idea if it's just backwater.
This is the interesting thing. So when they had to submit these nomination packets, which has to do with like purity profiling and whatever, the FDA is like, dude, what is this? You don't have an impurity profile. You don't have endotoxin testing. You're missing all of these other sort of standardized tests that you would get in order to characterize a medication. There's no monograph. What is this chemical exactly and how do you make it, right? And these are the people who make these things submitting it. Meanwhile, I have people in my comment section like, oh, no, you can test it. You can get a third-party lab to test it. And I'm like, you can? But the manufacturers can't? Is that what you're telling me? And again, I'm pushing back in a way where hopefully people are like, dang, maybe I'm being too trustworthy of these people who are taking money from me. And I'm like, yes, follow the money.
I like that perspective for sure. I mean, dude, the other day, not the other day, but like a few months ago, we were cleaning out my childhood home.
Oh, boy.
And in the garage, bro, I found this packet of the old school Jack 3D that had like the DS, whatever.
DMAA,
the banned substance or whatever. And I was like, dude.
Did you think about it?
I did.
Did you take it?
No, because it was hardened and just
charred.
like terrible. But it wasn't like in the cylindrical thing. It was just one of those free packets they gave you when you went to like GNC or Vitamin.
Yeah, now it's a weapon.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like I had that. I'll show it to you. I have it in my gym bag. I'll bring it to the gym today. But I was thinking about it. I was like, whoa. So many people, myself included, were really trusting of like pre-workouts and all these things from GNC. And it's like, now that I've understood that like some of these things are made in this vat and then they're made in this vat. And then this is probably a reach, but I've heard it to be true from people that make different supplements that like every now and then they'll put in trace amounts of amphetamines into some of these pre-workouts. So you have an awesome workout. So maybe that batch was just like insane. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm going to keep buying this.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I've never popped on a drug test because I've always been just like by the book. It's not until now I'm navigating some pains that I'm like, okay, I'll play with some peptides, which is why I'm really curious about that space. But so many people have tested positives for like contaminants.
Yeah.
And for a long time, until they just got recently acquired, we worked with Thorne for a very long time because they had their labs in South Carolina. Everything was third-party tested, drug-free sport approved. Things are going to be changing now that they've been acquired. However, it's like people don't think about those things. They just look at the claims on the label. My buddy took that. He's jacked. I'm going to take it. Same thing falls into peptides. Oh, my gosh, you've lost so much weight. I've not seen you for a couple of years. What's the GLP-1 you're on? How do we create more conversation around education as opposed to like, that just fucking works, Jordan. Like, I'm just going to take it. Worked for you to work for me.
Yeah. I mean, rooster crows in the morning, sun comes up. Rooster calls the sun to come up. It's like, does critical thinking need to be started earlier? I mean, I don't know. I think generally folks want to be good at critical thinking, but like you're taking mental shortcuts because there's a lot going on. We're overwhelmed with information. We're overwhelmed with stimulus, period. Right? So as far as what's the solution, I think asking yourself, hey, would I be comfortable with potential harm here? Seriously, would I be uncomfortable with the potential harm that doing this might cause? And you're like, what potential harm? I'm like, that's a great question.
I actually like that ideology
because if you don't know, then all potential harms are possible.
Yeah.
And you're like,
and I think you have to decide if you're willing to go there.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And that's why I love that you brought that up because I was in so much chronic elbow pain that I was like, fuck it. I'll try whatever to get rid of this pain other than surgery at that time. Okay. Now, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would probably.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing though. So imagine your pain's at the worst. It's the most vulnerable for something to work. It also waxes and wanes on its own, and you're also the most desperate. I mean, it's the trifecta right here, right? And so, Jack thing works. It's like, okay, cool. Maybe it worked, or maybe it got better on its own. We don't know.
Yeah.
Something else changed. And all I want, I'm just pleading for some data. Yeah. And I do want you to feel better, 100%. Sure. And if we got the data and it worked, do you know who's going to be prescribing this?
Oh, yeah.
Yours truly, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So we're like, you just hate peptides. I'm like, sir or ma'am, have you seen?
You'd have 4 houses in San Diego if you could sell peptides.
That's right. Yeah, 4 houses in San Diego. That's right.
We'd have a dirt bike track in your backyard.
I 100% would. Yeah.
That's the thing that's so funny to me is that like when I looked at your stuff, like I've talked to all kinds of local med spas and like, you know, they are just like friends of mine or people that like are like, hey, you know, you could suggest your clients to us. And I'm like, well, not yet. Let's learn more about this, blah, blah, blah. But it's so funny to me when it's like, you're an MD. Mm-hmm. Like you could very easily prescribe this stuff and monetize the fuck out of it, even if you didn't believe in it. And that's what I feel like they're not really understanding when they're coming after you. It's like doing the right thing and just chasing the dollar is not the same. And it's probably actually difficult, but you're just like, man, some days my clients and my patients suck. It'd be so much easier if I just sold peptides online.
100%. Yeah, people are like, oh, you're just mad because, you know, Big Pharma is paying you to say this. And I'm like, do you know how much money I could make on selling peptides?
Yeah.
Or just, you know, literally anything, you know? So, yeah, no, it's challenging out there. I want people to just put their thinking hats on and think, hey, if what he's saying is true, what does that mean? You know, or just consider the argument. But to your point, you got to swipe all the way through.
Totally. Totally.
That's a big ask.
Got a couple more, man. I appreciate your patience with you. I'm very curious because you've got so much knowledge in a lot of different spaces within wellness. You're not as specialized as most people. So I very much appreciate that. Calories in, calories out. Is that nuance? Is that something that can be helpful for some people? You know, this whole intermittent fasting thing limits the window, like you talked about when you get the steps, it just gets you out of the house. Maybe limits your window of eating. Intermittent fasting, hey, I'm not going to eat till noon. I'm going to finish eating by 7 p.m. Limits the window.
Yeah.
Calories in, calories out. You think that's scientifically correct or just practically terrible advice?
I mean, yes to both. I mean, it is true. There is no way that people lose weight, lose tissue, right? Because you can lose water weight, right? But people lose weight as people understand it without an energy deficit. Same thing, gaining weight without an energy surplus. So it is true. The final common pathway, the final common denominator, the final boss, if you will, is energy balance. Energy in versus energy out, calories in versus calories out. Now, both sides of those things are dynamic, ever-changing, and many different things go into them. That's also true, but it doesn't invalidate the relationship, okay? The point is this a good thing to tell people? Well, it's just about calories in, calories out. To the extent that changes some people's behavior, they're like, yeah, now I know what to do. I can calculate my current maintenance calorie level, and now I know that I need to be in a calorie deficit, so I'm going to eat less, and they're able to adhere to that and go off to the races. Great. Most people, that doesn't work for them. And so I would say that the advice generally is about as helpful as eat less, move more.
Yeah.
For some,
just make more money.
Exactly. For some people, they're like, oh, it resonates with them, and ultimately it leads to the behaviors that you want. But for most people, it's not. But here's what people will say in response. They'll say, what about my hormones? I'm like, look, your hormones are in this model. Hormones can certainly affect calories in or calories out, but they're not breaking the relationship, you know? And so any sort of, well, what about, yes, all of them are factored into calories and carbohydrates versus insulin. It's in the model. There is no evidence, for example, showing that eating more calories, but they just don't have any carbohydrates, somehow invalidates this, where people could eat more calories, just protein and fat, and then they're suddenly losing weight. It's like, no, you just weren't in an energy surplus. That's all it is. And so, yeah, I think it's ultimately unhelpful advice, but it is true nonetheless.
Yeah.
And so what I like to think about when it comes to weight management is how can I affect your sort of default behaviors to arrive at the correct energy balance, right? Ultimately, the correct calories in, calories out for you and what you want to do. But I'm not telling people like, look, it's all calories in, calories out.
Yeah, that's a great description. I also think protein is such a valuable thing. If you can put that first, in my opinion, we've seen people wear blood glucose monitors, and it kind of minimizes that immediate insulin spike, which is not necessarily a good thing for highly competitive athletes, but pretty good for most people.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on emphasizing protein? Because it is going to satiate you. It's going to get that nutrient dense type food into your system to help you recover and get the amino acid profile. Probably a little bit slower digesting in comparison to some things. So it's like I've noticed that in sharing that advice, people typically consume less. They're a little more satiated.
Yeah, a few things happen. So we have pretty good evidence that when you get it, you take protein intake from its current level. So on average, the average American eats somewhere between 1 to 1.1 grams of protein per kilogram body weight per day. You go up to like 1.6 to 1.8. A few things happen. So one, it tends to displace a lot of food off their plate, particularly ultra processed foods.
Yeah.
And so ultimately their calories come down, right? And it might be a little more satiating. They might have a little bit more thermic effect of food. So, the energy it costs to break down your food. But the main thing it does is it displaces food from your plate, right? And so when you think about the person you've told to eat more protein, and so the wholesale change is like, okay, maybe they were getting a bunch of protein before, but it was from ultra processed foods, from the burger, like you were talking about earlier, not that if you want to have a steak, for example, or chicken or whatever. And so now it's chicken. Okay, and it's not going to be the stuff that came with the protein before they've displaced that. So now the whole dietary pattern's changed, and yes, the protein intake's higher. So then the question becomes, well, is it the protein or is it the dietary pattern?
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it's more about the dietary pattern. Pretty decent, well-controlled studies seem to corroborate this, particularly as you get past that 1.6 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram body weight per day. It doesn't mean it's harmful above that or that you shouldn't go above that if you prefer it. The whole point is you're taking a piece of advice which is inducing a behavior, and that behavior has more than one effect. It's not just that their protein went up, it's that, their protein went up, they're eating less crap, and so the calories have kind of sussed out on their own. Which
How much does the why matter right there?
That's the whole point. So
for me, it matters, and I love the nuance.
Well, you want to know.
But for most people, they're just like, tell me what to do. They do it. It works. And then people are like, hey, what'd you do? I ate protein first.
Yeah. It's mechanistic masturbation to me.
Yes.
And so I like it because it helps me explain the why to myself, and I want to know such that I don't ascribe causality in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right. So then people say, oh, you're saying that protein is uniquely beneficial. And I'm like, well,
kind of.
Not what I'm, yeah. And so it's important to know because then you know the limits, I guess, which I think is beneficial. But
I like that.
Yeah, mechanistic masturbation. Don't do it in public.
It's so funny that to call it that. What did I call one the other day? We were talking to somebody. I think it was just like I was fascinating over different like ideas, and I just called it mindset masturbation. I was like, this is funny.
Yeah.
After everything you've studied now as a physician and kind of practiced the art over the course of time, met a ton of awesome people, you're constantly going to seminars, you're educating yourself, you're upgrading your operating system. If somebody listening today really wants to live long, get strong, and really have a meaningful life, like what few things could you share that like actually matters? If you were to put it into kind of like how CrossFit has their like fitness in 100 words, just kind of fun, like not the optimization, not the supplements, not the algorithm, but like, I'll give you mine and then you play off of it.
All right.
I think when you wake up, stay away from your phone. When you first wake up, take a piss, 3 deep nasal breaths and make your bed. I think that's kind of a cool thing to start. I like going outside, getting hydration and natural sunlight before anything else. I don't have a crazy time domain. Sometimes I cold plunge, sometimes I don't. I try my best to like allow myself to wake up before just jumping to the device. I don't necessarily have a crazy time domain. Sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's 30. I eventually get to the phone, the email, the text, whatever. Then it's like, okay, non-negotiable, move often at a slow pace. I like accumulating small wins, low-hanging fruit, and then eventually getting to harder things. Training for 60 to 90 minutes a day is a non-negotiable, at least 5 days a week. I try to have lights out no later than 11:30 p.m., which I know is late for most people. I'm a little bit of a night owl. Treat people appropriately. If you make a mess, clean it up. Eat real food. I like protein first. For most people, try not to drink their calories unless you're building memories. And be more curious than judgmental.
It's not a bad setup. It's really hard to improve upon that. I think if I get to play off that, I would say do as much as you can. And that's actually would be almost my entire through line. Do as much as you can of what? Do as much exercise as you can. Eat as well as you can. And these would, again, mostly be unprocessed foods or minimally processed foods. Sleep as much as you can. Make as many memories as you can. Have as many meaningful interpersonal relationships as you can. Connect with as many people as you can. Like, these are all the things, right?
Yeah.
The whole point is this: for longevity, there are a lot of different ways to get to the same endpoint, and you have to have fun along the way. And so finding your particular flavor of this fitness, dietary approach, lifestyle approach, interpersonal approach, that's challenging. But I think ultimately explore as much as you can. So
real quickly, just to share with people, where do you get into your fun? What are some of the things you're doing with racing and training and life?
Yeah. I really do enjoy training. I genuinely enjoy training, which is why, like, it's not an ask for me to go. I get really, really weird about if I don't get to train like as much as I want to. And so I realize that's not everybody's thing. They're like, how do you motivate yourself? I'm like, it's not motivation. I just love it.
Yeah.
If I didn't, I would hate it.
Yeah.
But truly fun things for me. I love photography. I've taken a few photography courses because I want to get better at it, but I'm terrible. But it's so much fun. Especially I like nature and cityscape, like landscape stuff.
That's dope.
So I do that. And then I love racing. Anything with wheels, fast, or whatever. People are like, oh, you're an adrenaline junkie. I'm like, no, that's when my brain slows down.
Yeah.
It used to be dirt bikes. Now it's cars. And I love it. I like tinkering on the car. If I could have my perfect job, I wouldn't be a physician. I wouldn't be a dude on the internet with a microphone. I would be, no offense. We were the same. I don't
know why they give me the microphone, man.
I would have a coffee shop in the front and it'd be like a repair shop in the back.
Oh, that's sick.
That's, yeah. And
what kind of racing though? Is it like Tokyo Drift or like, that's kind of what I'm envisioning.
No. So, like if Formula One is the highest level of like motorsport car automobile racing, this is like a dozen rungs below that.
Okay.
Time trials, what I run, time attack. So effectively you're on a road course. And then you're trying to go as fast around it as possible for a single lap, which means you have to be perfect. So it's interesting. A lot of line selection, carrying momentum. It's kind of like you're playing chess at 150 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Which I like a lot. And it is similar to
technological jiu-jitsu is what I'm hearing.
I like it. Yeah. Well, the whole point is this: I can go out, do a lap, and then I get to review the data. And I'm like, okay, where do I go next? Do I need to take a better line? Do I need lower tire pressure, higher tire pressure?
Do you have a coach for that?
I have gotten some coaching for this. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, because ultimately you're just trying to level up and you hit plateaus and it's like, okay, I can try a million things and see if anything sticks, or I can ask a person who's been here before and they can help me out.
It's also probably the toys are probably so cool. Like, oh, I got to get this extra little piece for this. I've been getting into that with the Traeger.
Yeah. Right. So that's the whole thing though, right? Like I should have picked a cheaper hobby. What the hell? This is terrible. But then if I had to pick one thing to do for the rest of my life that's fun, I love to teach.
Nice.
And at some point I'll be done and gone from Barbell Medicine. I would love to teach like at a university, med school, ideally. It's just, that's why I think I like the science communication stuff so much, because it's like, it gets me, I get to do a little bit of it. I don't have students,
yeah,
but I have people that are looking. So,
sure. Yeah. We'll get you alongside Dr. Andrew Huberman here soon.
Oh yeah. There you go.
You guys will play a little bit.
Daddy Huberman.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Let's share, where can people find out more about Barbell Medicine? Maybe give them a little bit more information and knowledge as to what you guys do over there.
Yeah. Barbell Medicine, our target is to bring together the best of modern day exercise science and modern medicine, blend them together, especially the intersection where those questions live. You can find us anywhere on the internet. If you search Barbell Medicine, we have a website with a bunch of articles and free content and resources. We're on YouTube. We have anywhere you get your podcast from. We have our own podcast, 440 something episodes deep. So
nice, man.
Yeah, if you don't start at the beginning, start at the end. That's where they're the best, and go backwards from there. And then on Instagram, social media, search Barbell Medicine. I'm Jordan_Barbell Medicine. And maybe you like my tepid takes.
I dig it, man. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Jordan Feigenbaum from Barbell Medicine, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time.